Welcome into the Steelers Talk Live Show. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today it's one of my favorite shows of the entire year. Today we have The Beast, the perfect offseason plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was so big this year, we had to split it up into two parts. So today, we're going to be breaking down the latest news and rumors that you guys need to know about when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers in our first segment. Then we'll get into The Beast, part one and part two of my perfect offseason plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Probably my favorite video I do out of any video we make during the entirety of the NFL schedule. So I've been looking forward to this one for a while, been working really hard on it. Can't wait to unveil it to you guys here on the show. And then we'll finish up today's live show with your questions, as always, on the weekly Steelers Talk mailbag. Real ones know what to do, man. If you got a question you want to get on the show, if you want to ask me something about Aaron Rodgers or free agency or the NFL draft or what Patrick Graham's defense is going to look like, if you got any questions surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm happy to answer those today. All you have to do is use hashtag Steelers down there in the live chat room, or you guys can super chat to get on today's Q&A guaranteed. The only way you can guarantee your question gets on the show today is if you super chat. So make sure you guys get those questions down there in the live chat room. Now, if you guys want to donate to the channel today, we greatly appreciate you. You can get a question on the mailbag, but if we can make $150 total today, we will give away a Steelers Talk channel hat. It's our promise to you guys. Every time we make $150 on a live show, we're giving away a hat to somebody in the chat room. And we're also going to be doing a raffle next Thursday's live show for the month of February. Right now, our current raffle item is an Angry Runs DK Metcalf t-shirt. We've just passed $500 in total donations for the month. I believe 2 shows ago, and now we're on the path to $1,000. If we can get to $1,000 in donations before next Thursday's show, we'll be raffling off a Steelers jersey of the winner's choosing. And if we get to $1,500 in donations before our raffle next Thursday, a mystery big ticket item will be unlocked here on Steelers Talk. So if you want to see what that mystery big ticket item is, make sure you guys get those donations in and get your raffle tickets. And in terms of where you guys can send your or actually, this is the road to 1,000 that we have for you guys here. We're getting pretty close to $1,000 and raffling off a Steelers jersey of the winner's choosing. We're about 3/4 of the way there. So if we have a really good show today, we might even pass it here on today's program. If you guys want to double your raffle entries, you guys can send in a Venmo or PayPal donation instead of a Super Chat donation. The reason why we give you double the raffle tickets for Venmo and PayPal's, guys, is because we get to keep more of the proceeds. YouTube takes a 30% cut of every Super Chat you send in. Apple takes another 10%. So if you send it via Venmo or PayPal, more of your donation dollars go to us. So if you want to double your raffle tickets, you guys can go to Venmo or PayPal. And in terms of how you guys can get raffle tickets, $5 gets you in, $10 gets you 3 raffle tickets, $20 gets you 10, $50 gets you 25 tickets and a channel hat, and $100 we bang for you guys. You get all the tickets involved with a $100 donation. And not only do you get a Steelers Talk channel hat, but you can donate one to somebody in the chat that you think is deserving. So greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. And by the way, all of these things in terms of the raffle tickets are double when you send in your donations via Venmo or PayPal. So let's get the party started, man. Who is all here? Spam those me's in the chat if you are here at the beginning of today's program. We got over 100 people watching live. We got 20 likes. We got to get up to at least 50 likes before we get into our first segment, guys. So spam those me's. We've got Henry in here. We've got Kevin Reed. We've got JT Clover. My lovely fiance Cassie Voth is here. We've got Michael Urin. We've got JT Clover, Derek Smith. My mother is here. Patty Gustafson is here. Everyone say hi to my mom. We got Trumper in the chat. We've got Tristan White. We've got Kevin Reed. Czar Craig is here as always. We've got Chuck Dugan, Black Tear Drinker. We got Preston. We've got Lincoln. We got a good crew of Steelers fans ready to talk some football today. So now let's bring on our producer. Mr. Ponzi is here on a Thursday. Ponzi, it's great to see you, my friend.
Always great to be here, Sperry.
Now, we have heard some kind of conflicting reports on what Aaron Rodgers plans on doing in the 2026 season. Some people say he's more likely to return than retire. We're getting some new reporting that he might take months to make a decision. We got a report yesterday saying that he's leaning towards retirement. I mean, it just seems like nobody knows what Aaron Rodgers is going to do next or this upcoming season. Who should be the plan B for the Steelers at QB1 if Aaron Rodgers ends up retiring?
I really do want to say it's Malik Willis or bust for plan B. But, I don't know, man. I feel like, the Dolphins are kind of the favorite for him. Mm-hmm. So, I go into a more reasonable option. Maybe you draft a quarterback like a Ty Simpson and, bring in a veteran free agent like Geno Smith. Maybe, man, it's kind of hard. It's really bad quarterback class out there. It's really bad.
It's a bad QB market.
You're talking about maybe Kyler Murray being the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's how kind of bad it is. And nothing against Kyler Murray. I just think, you could do a lot better than that.
Yeah, the thing about Kyler is that he's very talented. There's a reason why he went number 1 overall, Heisman Trophy winner, all that stuff. He was an MVP favorite until he got hurt his second year in the league in Cliff Kingsbury's offense there in Arizona. But over the last several years, they tried to kind of fit him in like a Sean McVay-style offense where they put him under center a lot, back to the defense. That's just not Kyler Murray's game. He's heavy shotgun. He's read option. He's getting outside the pocket, moving the launch point, and making plays out of structure. And the thing that worries me about Kyler is that, yeah, he is a talented quarterback. He's going to make some awesome plays for you. He's still dynamic with his legs, but there's a couple things that concern me. Number one is the recent injuries, all right? The lower body injuries he's had the last couple of years, and he's somebody that really relies on his athleticism, and he is getting older. So as he gets older into his 30s, when he's not going to be able to run as much, is he going to be somebody that can win from the pocket? And I think with somebody that's his height, it's really hard for him to see over the middle. And it's really tough to be a really good pocket passer and in-structure playmaker when you can't see over the middle. So even though Kyler Murray, very talented player, still a dynamic playmaker when he's healthy, I just kind of question how long he's going to be able to keep that up. And then even if he can keep it up, how sustainable is it for a quarterback to just rely so much on out-of-structure playmaking? I just don't think you see a whole lot of those guys win Super Bowls. And even Patrick Mahomes, who's very good out of structure, wins from within structure. So it's hard to win a Super Bowl with a quarterback that just tries to run around and play make all the time. Got to have somebody that can win from within the pocket. So honestly, man, if Rodgers retires, I'm going full send for Malik Willis. And like you said, Miami might have the inline road to get him, and we might luck out on Malik Willis even if we want to pursue him. And then if you fail to get him, I think you might be looking at like Geno Smith as a bridge option, and then you bring in a younger quarterback to compete with him, along with Will Howard, and you kind of duke it out in camp. I don't think that's a great plan because I think Geno Smith is a limited quarterback, but he does have a strong arm. He's very experienced. He's got established chemistry with DK Metcalf. I think that there's worse bridge options out there than Geno, but obviously you wouldn't be bringing in Geno Smith to win you a Super Bowl or, be the plan at quarterback the next 5 years. You would really have to bring in Geno as more of like a mentor bridge option. And then you either move forward with Will Howard as the long-term option and you have him battle it out with Geno, or you draft Ty Simpson and you kind of have Howard and Simpson battle it out with Geno and just plain simply, Ponzi, I think if Rodgers retires, I think we're in trouble.
I will say, to give some Steelers fans some hope here, if there's anyone who could turn one of these rehab projects into a competent starter, I do think it's Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy has done some wonder with, Aaron Rodgers himself.
Cooper Rush,
yeah.
Winning
Dak
record
Prescott.
of Cooper Rush.
I think, he is kind of like an underrated quarterback whisperer. And I think that if he gets his hands, maybe not on a Kyler. I don't know if Kyler has the tools to, adjust and thrive like Dak turned into. But, I really think, maybe a Geno. Maybe, an Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
I think, one of these rehab options that could really find some success in Pittsburgh if, that does become the case.
The thing about Geno is that, I don't think he's the type of quarterback that can take a bad situation and make it, serviceable. And I think we saw that in Las Vegas, right? Where this year, Chip Kelly probably ran the worst offense schematically in football this year. He had no weapons to throw to outside of Brock Bowers, who was always injured this year. Genty in the run game couldn't do anything. He was under pressure all the time. His defense consistently put him at a deficit, so he had to really pushed the ball downfield into really tight windows, and it led to a lot of interceptions. I'm not trying to sit up here and say Geno Smith played good for the Las Vegas Raiders this year, but we have seen Geno, in those Seattle offenses with DK Metcalf, by the way. Those two had a great connection. He still has awesome arm talent. Like, his arm talent, his just pure arm strength, his ability to make some really high-end throws is underrated. I'm not trying to sit up here and say Geno Smith would win the Steelers a Super Bowl, but in terms of like a bridge veteran option that can come in and start the first half of the season while, your rookie quarterback or Will Howard prepares to start the second half of the year, if Rodgers retires, that might be the best path forward for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I guess we'll just have to see what Rodgers decides. All right, we got $10 here from Trumper to get us started on today's show. He says, "Hey, Jack, how do you trade TJ Watt considering his record and what he has done for the Steelers? I don't want to lose Nick Herbig, but I don't want to give up Watt either." Listen, man, it's not a factor of me wanting to get rid of TJ Watt. Like, if in a perfect world, Nick Herbig would be perfectly fine being the third rotational edge rusher. He wouldn't want a new contract extension, and you could go into next season with all three of these guys on your roster next year. Obviously, that's the best case scenario, but it's sounding like Nick Herbig wants a new contract. It's sounding like he's done being a backup in this league. And how can you blame Nick Herbig for feeling that way? He's played awesome these last 2 years, and he's getting like 15 snaps a game when TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are healthy, and that's just not enough for somebody of Nick Herbig's caliber, and I think he knows that. So I think he's going to go to the organization this year, if he hasn't already, and say, "Listen, man, I want to start full-time. You can either give me a full-time starting job and extend me next year, or you can trade me somewhere else, a team that will actually give me that kind of job." And, you look at TJ Watt's profile, Watt was not as successful as a rusher as either Alex Highsmith or Nick Herbig last year on a per-snap basis. Now, I still think TJ Watt's a really good player. I want to make that abundantly clear. All right, he's an awesome run defender, still one of the best run defending edges in the game. He's got versatility to drop back in coverage if you need him to. He's still very good as a pass rusher as well. It's just his cap hit is $42 million, guys. And unless you're Myles Garrett and unless you're Micah Parsons and you're making an impact on like every single play and you're beating double teams, not just getting double teams, you're consistently beating double teams, you're not going to be worth that kind of money against the cap, plain and simply. And, if I have to choose to trade one of these guys, TJ Watt, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, I'm going to pick the person that's the oldest. TJ Watt is 31. I'm going to pick the most expensive against the cap, obviously $42 million cap hit, and the least productive. Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig, from an efficiency standpoint, were more productive than TJ Watt last season. And then another thing is that I'm not sure if TJ's as important to the success of the Steelers defense as he has been in previous years. And what I mean by that is that in previous years, like TJ Watt gets injured, boom, it's like a bad defense. We lose every game we play, all that different stuff. But last year, when TJ Watt dealt with his lung issue, what happened? The Steelers defense, really didn't skip a beat. You can even make an argument the defense was better with TJ Watt out of the lineup last year with Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig as your two starting outside linebackers. So that gives me confidence that this defense can play very well with Herbig and Highsmith as their two starting edge rushers. And I still think Watt is a valuable trade piece where you can get a second-round pick for TJ Watt in a trade. Do I necessarily want that to happen? No, I would love TJ Watt to be a one-helmet guy, but sometimes you got to make tough decisions for the betterment of the team. And I think when you look at the options and you have to make a tough call, I think the right decision is to probably trade TJ Watt. Now, do I think the Steelers will do that? Hell no. I mean, they drug along Big Ben Roethlisberger until he was ready to retire, which was way too late. They really care about making these quote-unquote franchise icons into one-helmet guys, and they're willing to pay them big money late into their careers when they're not worth that money anymore. So I do think they will probably keep TJ Watt. I don't think they will trade Alex Highsmith either. I think if Nick Herbig says start me or trade me, unfortunately, I think the decision will be to trade Nick Herbig this offseason, and I'll be pretty sad when that day comes. So, all right, man. Well, we got another super chat here, Ponzi, if we want to get to that before our first segment. It is from the $2 man himself, Bernard Nixon.
We got to make a graphic for him, man.
We got to make it.
Do something for you, man.
We got to do some sort of graphic for Bernard. He says, "Do you think A-Rod wants attention with all this?" No, I actually think Aaron just wants to do things at his own speed. He doesn't care what anybody else thinks. In fact, I think the reason, everybody wants answers from him, and he's like, listen, I'm not going to rush any decision here. I'm going to go through my process, and I'm going to come to a decision in a timely manner. I don't think this is going to drag on into June like it did last year, guys. I think we'll have a decision within the next probably 2 weeks whether Aaron Rodgers will return for another season. Apparently, the people that were dealing with cancer in his life are doing much better. And we'll talk about actually in our first segment today, but make no mistake, guys, like Rodgers made his decision back last March, all right, probably on his visit to Pittsburgh. All right, I'm coming here if the people in my life start to feel better and their situations get better. The reason why he didn't sign when he visited Pittsburgh at that time was because he didn't want to make a commitment to an entire season with the Pittsburgh Steelers if those people that were dealing with cancer in his life, their situations got worse, and it forced him to leave the game of football. He didn't want to put the Steelers in that situation. So he and the Steelers mutually agreed to kind of let it play out a couple more months, see how the situation progressed, and if Rodgers felt like he had to retire and take care of his people, he would have done that. Or if the situation improved, which it did, he signs before mandatory minicamp. So I think with those situations being different this offseason, I'm not expecting this to drag out multiple months like some people think it's going to. I think we're going to get an answer definitely before free agency, and we'll just see what that answer ends up being. All right, man, well, let's get into our first segment of the day. The latest Steelers news and rumors. Got a lot to cover today, from Aaron Rodgers to Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin III, Isaac Seumalo, James Pierre, Asante Samuel Jr., and even a little bit of Big Ben Roethlisberger. So we got a bunch of stuff to cover here, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And with that, let's get into our first segment on today's live show. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and on tonight's show, we got a lot to talk about. First up, some new conflicting reporting on Aaron Rodgers and his future with the Pittsburgh Steelers that we'll talk about at the top. Then we'll get into the latest when it comes to the wide receiver position when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Could the Steelers not be bringing back either Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin III this offseason? I'll have an answer for that here later in the show. Then Isaac Seumalo, could he not be coming back either? There's a Steelers insider that says it's a long shot for him to return in 2026. Also, should the Steelers re-sign James Pierre or Asante Samuel Jr.? It's a very interesting question that I'll give my answer to later. And then Big Ben Roethlisberger responds to Joey Porter Sr. and his criticism of Big Ben Roethlisberger during Super Bowl week. So make sure you guys stick around to see what Ben had to say. But before we get into the content today, make sure you give me a follow on X if you haven't already, guys, at Jack_Sperry. I put out additional Steelers content on that social media platform, and that's where I put my instant reactions to all the latest Steelers rumors, all the latest Steelers news, do film study stuff on there. I also do a bunch of NFL draft analysis for us here at Chat Sports on my X account. So if you guys want more content from me, that's where you guys can find it for free at Jack_Sperry. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support on that platform. Well, now let's get into the news and rumors of the day, starting, of course, with Aaron Rodgers, where there's a ton of conflicting reporting being done right now surrounding the Steelers starting quarterback and his status for the 2026 season. Is he going to retire? Is he going to return for a second season here at age 43, which he will be in December? And there's a lot of different people saying a bunch of different things. So let's kind of catch you up on all the latest reporting. Tom Pelissero said during Super Bowl Sunday that the quote-unquote odds are increasing that Rodgers returns. Pelissero also said that Rodgers has had several conversations with Mike McCarthy and Steelers players such as DK Metcalf. Brooke Pryor said last week from ESPN that Rodgers is more likely to come back than not next season. But then yesterday, Aditi Kinkambwala from CBS Sports says Rodgers is quote-unquote far more likely to retire than to return for the 2026 season, completely contradicting those previous reports. Jerry Dulac today from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette said that Rodgers' chances of a return are better than not, so maybe that means he is going to retire. The real ones know there. But then Jeremy Fowler from ESPN also said today that a Rodgers decision he thinks could take months before Rodgers decides if he wants to play during the 2026 season. This is exactly what Fowler had to say earlier today. I just checked on this. The Steelers remain open to a potential Aaron Rodgers return, but they got to figure out if he wants to play or not. That could take months. Now, personally, guys, I disagree with Jeremy Fowler. I think people assume because it took months last year that Rodgers is going to take the same amount of time to eventually sign with an NFL NFL team this year. But I think that this year's situation is completely different from last, and I really doubt that it will take months for Rodgers to make a decision. My guess is we get a decision from Rodgers within the next 2 weeks before the start of NFL free agency. And make no mistake, guys, Rodgers kind of made his decision last year in March when he had that visit to Pittsburgh. He only took one visit. There's a reason why he only took one visit, and it was to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And pretty much the way that it went down is Rodgers had some responsibilities, or at least he felt like he had some responsibilities to people in his life that he was close to that were dealing with cancer. And he didn't want to sign with a team and then have those people's situations kind of get worse, and then he would have to leave the team and retire to be able to take care of his people. So what he did instead was he stayed in communication with the Pittsburgh Steelers, says, look, I'm going to be coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin said himself, he knew something, all right? He said it on the Pivot podcast during training camp last year. He knew Aaron Rodgers was coming long before he officially announced he would be joining the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was just that Rodgers wanted to wait until those situations with his people close to him improved before he made a full season commitment to a football team. And this year, those situations are completely different. Apparently, those people are doing much better, and Rodgers is not going to have to, hold things out to see if he has to retire or not based on those situations. So I bet we get final word at least by free agency. The next couple of weeks, of course, free agency, the tampering period opens on March 9th, which is coming up here. I think for sure we have a decision from Aaron Rodgers before that, but it could be as early as later this week. I mean, it really could come down at any point. And, if it does take months, and if Rodgers does want to take his time again like last year, my take on the situation, even as somebody that would like Rodgers to come back for another season, I do not want Pittsburgh to wait for him this year. Like, I don't want them to forego any other opportunities that they feel like would be, good opportunities for the team just to wait for Aaron Rodgers and wait until June to decide if he wants to play football this year. Like, that's not something that I'm interested in doing. I would tell Aaron, listen, man, you've had multiple months here since the end of the 2025 season to make your decision as to whether or not you want to play with us this year. If you don't want to be a Steeler, that's fine. We're going to move on, though, and we're going to find somebody else in free agency this year. And if he hasn't decided by free agency and he says, I still got to take more time to decide if I want to play, I tell him, no hard feelings. We're going to go out and pursue Malik Willis instead because, Malik is somebody that, does have the upside to be a franchise-level quarterback. I would probably want Aaron Rodgers over Malik Willis if I can, just because Rodgers, I think, gives this team a better chance to compete in the playoffs than Malik Willis would next season. Not to mention he's significantly cheaper, so you can put a better surrounding cast around Aaron Rodgers. And I still think Rodgers, with the proper supporting cast, can play very well for this football team. But if it's an unknown whether Aaron's going to play or not next season, by the time we get to free agency, I'm not wasting any more time. I'm pursuing Malik Willis. But my best guess, guys, is that we will get word within the next probably 2 or 3 weeks that Aaron Rodgers will be returning to the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026. And my thinking on that is I kind of go back to Tom Pelissero's report where he says that Rodgers has spoken with Mike McCarthy not once, but several times. Why would he have several conversations with the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers to just congratulate him, right? That's just not, maybe he calls him once to congratulate him on the job, but if you're having multiple conversations with the head coach of an NFL team, you're putting together a plan. You're kind of, having discussions on what it would look like if he were to return. And my guess is McCarthy is somebody that wants Rodgers to return, is going to tailor the offensive or the offseason kind of plan to rebuild the offense around Aaron and kind of what he wants to do. So I'm sure Aaron is getting some input and he's providing his input to Mike McCarthy, and I'm sure that they're collaborating on that. And then once that plan is in place, I think he decides, yeah, I'm coming back for another season here in the Steel City. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. What will be Aaron Rodgers' decision this offseason? Will he decide to play, or will he decide to retire? Type P for play, type R for retire. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today. While I tell you about our sponsor, let me know your answer to today's pinned question down there in the comments. And you guys have been asking for merch here on Steelers Talk for multiple years. Our bosses here at Chat Sports have finally greenlit some great merch opportunities for us here, guys. And we have the Steel City Drinking Team t-shirt just in time for St. Patrick's Day for you guys to take advantage of. Go to chatsports.com/DCGreen. Down there in the comments and description of today's show is the link. Click that link, make a purchase. It's only $30 to get this awesome t-shirt here. It's got that great green color, of course, with the Steel City Drinking Team logo on there. Limited edition. This is only going to be available up until around St. Patrick's Day this year, and then it's gone forever, all right? So get yours right now. The more that we sell, the more merch opportunities we are going to get. My bosses tell me if we can really hit a home run with this Steel City Drinking Team t-shirt, we can do some awesome stuff for free agency. So if you guys want more merch opportunities here on Steelers Talk throughout the calendar year, get yours today. Chatsports.com/pitgreen to get your Steel City Drinking Team t-shirt today. All right, so now let's move over to the wide receiver position here, where the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Ray Filipaldo says that Pittsburgh has not been happy with Roman Wilson's quote-unquote professionalism in his first 2 years as an NFL wide receiver. This is what Filipaldo had to say earlier this week. I did notice the QB, Aaron Rodgers, and the OC, Arthur Smith, were not happy with Roman's professionalism. The OC is gone, but the QB probably is back. It's up to Wilson to become more of a pro. I think he's trying, but he has to produce at some point. I don't think he's a bad apple or anything like that. I just think he's one of those guys where it comes slow for him. And then Jerry Dulac, his partner there at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, says this about the upcoming third-year receiver. For some reason, there was something Arthur Smith didn't like about him, but I don't think they plan to give up on him. He has a lot of natural ability that I think will still make him a quality receiver. So it seems like Jerry thinks that the Steelers will keep him around, although it does seem like Roman is adjusting to the NFL, particularly slowly at this point. And, this report does link up with reports that we got at the end of Roman's rookie season, last offseason, where he had trouble picking up the playbook. People kind of wondered, why is Roman Wilson a healthy scratch every week? Why isn't he playing in the playoffs? He's practicing every week, but he's not playing in the games. Why is that? Apparently, the answer to that was he wasn't picking up the playbook. And, I think that kind of points to the quote-unquote professionalism stuff that Ray points out there in that report. And what I think that this is, and specifically when it comes to his connection with Aaron Rodgers, is that Roman has a hard time, what I call tempoing his routes, where you sync up when you're trying to break open based on the timing of the play and the footwork and the eyes of the quarterback. And sometimes Roman just runs full speed throughout his route, and sometimes he's the third or fourth read in the progression, and Rodgers is going through his progression, but by the time he gets to Roman, he's already kind of covered up because he already made his break way too early, and that would really frustrate Aaron Rodgers, which is part of the reason why Rodgers wanted the team to go out and get Adam Thielen and MVS, because he felt like those guys were more professional in the way that they run routes, and it's something that Roman's going to have to be better at if he wants to coexist with Aaron Rodgers in the Steelers offense. So could a full offseason, working in Malibu with Aaron Rodgers, get Roman synced up with him? It's certainly possible. I do think Roman has a lot of ability. There's a reason why he went in the third round of the NFL draft just a couple years ago, guys. It's not just, he's a scrub and the Steelers took a terrible player. No, I think he's got the skill set to be something similar to like a Brandon Cooks or maybe even a Randall Cobb, somebody that has worked with Aaron Rodgers. And Brandon Cooks just a couple years ago was phenomenal in Mike McCarthy's offense. He had a great season back in 2023. Somebody that can run those deep crossers and somebody that, is smaller but has good speed and really good hands. I still think Roman Wilson has those qualities where he could be a good receiver in this league. He just has to be more quote-unquote professional here and learn how to tempo those routes a little bit better and kind of learn how to play at the NFL level. Hopefully he can do that this offseason. However, I can't say a trade is completely off the table here if the Steelers feel like this is not somebody that's eventually going to quote-unquote get it at the NFL level. I could see them trading him for, a mid to late day 3 pick. He was a former day 2 draft pick, so I'm sure there's a lot of teams around the league that liked him coming out of Michigan that would probably be willing to dish out a 6th or a 7th round pick for Roman Wilson. So I guess we'll just have to see what happens with Roman this offseason. But speaking of the wide receiver position, it also sounds like Calvin Austin III probably isn't going to be coming back to the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. This is what Calvin had to say recently on his future with the team. Pittsburgh, just being real, they might not want me, or they might have a different vision, and that's why I say at the end of the day, it's just straight business. It's just a straight business decision. Obviously, Coach T did step down. Whether I stay or leave, it's going to be a new situation regardless. Even if I stay, we have a whole new staff, so it's definitely something I'm excited about and have been praying over. So, that definitely sounds like an answer to me, where Calvin Austin is probably going to be ending up elsewhere heading into the 2026 season. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments comment section. How many wide receivers from last year's team is going to be on the team this season? Is it just going to be DK Metcalf and Ben Skoranek? Could Roman Wilson be on the team next year as well? Let me know the number of receivers that were on the team last year that you think will be back in 2026. Speaking of players that might not be back next year, Isaac Seumalo, according to Ray Filipaldo, he's a long shot to return to the team in 2026, according to him. This is what Ray had to say about the chances of Seumalo going somewhere else in NFL free agency. I just think it's a long shot for Isaac Seumalo, age 32, missed 7 games the last 2 seasons. I just think it's a long shot that the Steelers want to bring him back and roll the dice that he's going to be able to get through the next couple of seasons. Now, listen, man, I don't necessarily disagree with Ray on this, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Seumalo returns. The Steelers might want to keep that continuity on the offensive line. This is the best that the Steelers offensive line has looked in years, and Seumalo is kind of the elder statesman on that group. Like, it sounds like either Broderick Jones or Dylan Cook will be back at left tackle, and then everybody on the right side of the Steelers offensive line is going into their 3rd season, still very young players. So they need a veteran in that group, and Seumalo is the guy that has cohesive chemistry with those guys. And I know he's dealt with some injuries over the last few years, but when he's in there, he's a very, very good football player, and he shouldn't be that expensive to bring back for somebody at his age. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they bring him back, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he ends up leaving as well. Maybe the Steelers want to move Broderick Jones to left guard. Maybe they feel comfortable in Spencer Anderson at left guard. Maybe they want to draft Vega Ione, the guard out of Penn State, in the 1st round. Maybe that's the plan they want to go down. I don't know what they're going to do at left guard this offseason, guys, but it's definitely going to be interesting. For me, I would love to bring back Isaac Seumalo. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section, and give me a thumbs up if you to help out the show today. It really does help us out. The real ones know that the best way to help out the channel is click that thumbs up icon. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you're enjoying our content and that they should recommend it to other Steelers fans like yourselves. Now we can shift our focus here to the cornerback position and whether or not the Steelers should bring back James Pierre or Asante Samuel Jr. this offseason. Obviously, Joey Porter Jr. is this team's number 1 corner on the outside, but I thought James Pierre and Asante Samuel Jr. did a pretty good job for this Steelers defense last year in the second half of the season. The question is, which one do you bring back for another couple seasons here in Pittsburgh? You guys can take a look at the PFF grading. Last year, James Pierre finished with an 86.2 PFF grade, which was 2nd in all of football. All right, that is extremely impressive, and you might say that's a limited sample size, but he played a good chunk of that second half of the year, and then Asante Samuel Jr. played a little bit towards the end. He didn't play enough snaps to register in the rankings for PFF, but a 70.1 PFF grade is certainly not bad, and I'm not trying to say PFF grading is gospel or anything like that, but anybody that's watched the film on James Pierre will tell you this guy absolutely balled out. Yet despite that, you look at the projected market values on PFF and SpoTrack, like, they're projecting James Pierre just a 1-year, like $2 million deal right now. I think he probably ends up getting more than that. And then Asante Samuel Jr., they're only projecting at like a 1-year prove-it deal at like $3.5 million. So, honestly, I'd be cool with whatever the Steelers want to do here. I think both these players are pretty darn good. But if I had to, pick a preference, I would like James Pierre to be back next year. I thought, he was great all throughout the year last season, even going back to camp where he led the team in interceptions on defense last year and was a standout at camp. Then he gets the opportunity to play once some of those injuries kicked in, and he was phenomenal the entire season. He's great in man coverage, exactly what Patrick Graham wants to run here in Pittsburgh on the opposite side of Joey Porter Jr. And if you can get him for anything close to that $2 million per season price tag that SpoTrack is currently projecting for James Pierre, that is an absolute steal, and you got to bring him back to this defense, in my opinion. So take your pick down there in the comment section. Type JP for James Pierre or ASJ for Asante Samuel Jr., and type neither if you think that they should go out and get somebody else to put on the other side of Joey Porter Jr. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section. Now, I wanted to finish up today's show here with a little bit of Big Ben Roethlisberger. We addressed the story last week, very briefly on Joey Porter Sr. kind of, blasting Big Ben Roethlisberger during Super Bowl week, calling him a bad person and a bad teammate. Well, Big Ben, on his podcast, the Footballin' Podcast, kind of addressed it. He didn't really, address PZ Sr. at at all. He kind of just talked about his own personal growth that he has had throughout the years as an individual. And this is what he had to say. I thought it was pretty heartfelt. He says, I think about my own life, and it reminded me of the transformation that I've gone through in my life. That only comes from the grace of God. We're all immature at times, and we're all selfish. And so I think as we grow and we mature, and again, I say it's only through the grace of God that we can look back and be like, man, look how much I've changed. I'm proud of that. I like to think as we mature and as we grow in our faith, I grow in my faith, and it's less about me, number one. I think a lot of us inherently, that's what we are. We're born thinking I'm number one. I think as I've grown in my faith and with my family and everything, it's like, man, or me needs to come way down, and God goes number one, my family, my friends, and then me. And so I think I go through that every day. Fast forward 5 years, I hope then in 5 years I'm looking back at this version of me, and I'm still being like, holy cow, he's continued to be transformed. And the reason why I kind of wanted to bring up these comments today, guys, is first of all to say I'm happy for Big Ben Roethlisberger for having the humility to maybe look at some of the things that he was doing, in his younger days and saying, yeah, maybe I was being a bit selfish or maybe being a little bit immature. But it's also a great story of how, people are never finished products, and you're always trying to go on that journey of personal growth. And, Big Ben Roethlisberger is always going to be, one of my personal heroes as a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, won 2 Super Bowls for this football team. But also you just care about him as a human being, wanting him to, find, his purpose in life and all those different things. And it sounds like with his family and his faith journey, he's certainly finding that. So, has Big Ben Roethlisberger been a perfect teammate in the past? Probably not. Has he been a great person at times, and especially in his younger days? Probably not. All right, the fame and, the notoriety probably got to his head a little bit. But, it seems like he has, the wherewithal to kind of take a look at himself in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm imperfect. And so I've made some bad decisions in my life, but, I'm going to try and continue to grow from that and try to be a good person as I move forward. So, I just wanted to share that message to everybody out there because I think it's a pretty inspiring one out there. So that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. We're going to continue to get you guys great Steelers coverage all throughout this weekend as we prepare for our extensive coverage from Indianapolis for the NFL Scouting Combine next week. So make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. First segment in the books. Coming up next, the Beast, all right? 2-part off-season plan. Everything from roster cuts to restructures to a blockbuster trade to a 7-round Steelers mock draft with multiple trades. I've got it all for you guys coming up here over the next hour or so on this show. But again, guys, we do have that mailbag at the end of the show. So if you got a question, if you got a comment, if you want to, put anything on the show, have your voice heard, all right? Hashtag Steelers or Super Chat to get on the Q&A here today. $2 from Bernard Nixon. Says, I don't care what she said. I think A-Rod will be back. Talking about Aditi Kinkambwala from CBS Sports. And, I think that Aditi, she's been wrong on the quarterback situation a lot here in Pittsburgh over the last several years. I remember her saying that the Steelers were not going to let Justin Fields leave under any circumstances last year. She said last year she thought Rodgers was going to retire and that he wasn't interested in playing for Pittsburgh. Obviously, both of those ended up being wrong. Whoever her sources are on Aaron Rodgers, I don't think they're as close to Rodgers as she thinks that they are. But who knows? She could be right. She could be right. Aaron could certainly still retire. I would say that's certainly on the table. But if I had to guess right now, I would say it's more than a 50% chance Rodgers returns. But I guess we'll just have to see. $2 again from Bernard says, if Denver can win a Super Bowl with a washed-up Peyton. Yeah, I mean, they had one of the best defenses of the decade. Keep that in mind. But, and the Steelers are going to have to take that next step defensively under Patrick Graham, which I do believe is possible. I still think we got a lot of good talent on this defense, and I think Patrick Graham brings the best defensive coordination that we've had with this team in a long time. So I'm excited to see what this defense looks like. And, if they're going to be the Eagles, if they're going to be, the Seattle Seahawks. Remember, guys, the last 2 Super Bowl champions, what were their records the year before they won the Super Bowl? 10 wins, same as the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. So don't tell me that a Steelers team that won 10 games last year, has a lot of talent on the roster, can't make a couple tweaks to this roster. They've already made tweaks to the coaching staff, obviously, with Mike Tomlin stepping down. Don't tell me that this team, it's impossible for them to take that next step. I know we're frustrated, and we've seen the same movie for like 8 years in a row now. But listen, man, we got a new sheriff in town in Mike McCarthy, and, you fix the wide receiver room. The defense turns it around with a new DC. Telling you, man, there's reason for hope and optimism that the Steelers can kind of escape this Groundhog Day-esque 10-7 loop that we've been in and take that next step forward as a football team without having to completely rebuild. $2 from Bernard again says if the Steelers can win, or the Steelers can win with a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers, next year he'll be 43. And by the way, Tom Brady was 43 when he won his final Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, okay? And what do you have to do, Ponzi, to win that Super Bowl? He was previously with a team with one good receiver, defensive-minded head coach, won his division, and lost in the first round of the playoffs. The same exact season Aaron Rodgers just had at 42 years old. The next year, he gets an offensive-minded head coach, gets a big upgrade in his weapons, all right? Takes a team that was 7-9 in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They win the Super Bowl in year one. All right. Now, I'm not saying, and I'm not guaranteeing Rodgers wins a Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers at 43 years old. Certainly not guaranteeing that. But, is it possible? Does he give this team the best chance? I believe so. So if you're somebody that still believes this team can take that next step, I believe that Aaron Rodgers is the guy that gives you the best chance to go on that run come January and February. $5 from Yami says, do you believe the Steelers' first-round pick will be depending on Aaron Rodgers returning? If not, where do you think they go position-wise? I think it depends somewhat. I'll be honest with you, Yami. If Rodgers doesn't return, I think the chances of them taking Ty Simpson go skyrocketing, because Simpson kind of fits exactly what Mike McCarthy likes in a quarterback. He's got some mobility to him, very quick processor. That's very important for a McCarthy offense. You got to be a cerebral passer. Simpson's on his way to doing that. He ran an NFL-style pure progression offense at Alabama last year. He fits what Mike McCarthy usually likes. So if Rodgers is not returning, and hell, maybe even if Rodgers does return, he's going to be an option that the Steelers consider. And I think it's been reported that the Steelers are very, very interested in Ty Simpson. They like him a lot. So personally, I would rather go the receiver route. And maybe Rodgers, Ponzi, is saying, if I come back, you have to take a receiver round one. Maybe that's a condition of him coming back, because he's never, ever, ever had a first-round wide receiver on his team drafted when he's on the team. Think about that, man. When he's been the quarterback of either the Packers, the Jets, or the Steelers, 0 first-round pick wide receivers. 0. It might, he might be having conversations with McCarthy and saying, I like Jordan Tyson, or I like Mekhi Lemon. You got to draft one of these guys in round one if you want me to return. That's very possible that's part of the discussion. But also McCarthy might be like, if we really like Ty Simpson, I want to have the liberty to be able to take him, because if you come back, you're only going to be coming back for probably one more season. And if we believe Ty Simpson's the future, we're going to take him. So I will say Ty Simpson's a very realistic possibility in round one. Personally, I'd rather go wide receiver to get Aaron Rodgers the help that he desperately needs to try and get this team to where it needs to go. But Simpson fits what McCarthy likes. It wouldn't shock me if they take him round one. $2 from Bernard says Pete Briscoe said A-Rod was pretty good last year. Listen, man, I've said it on the show a number of times. I think this offense was elevated by the play of Aaron Rodgers. Now, people look at the offense, and it was kind of middling. At best, it was average, but it really was below average last year, right? And with very little explosive plays down the field, and people blame Aaron Rodgers for that. I would put more of the blame on the lack of receiver talent, right? They only had one legitimate starter on the team, in my opinion, in DK Metcalf. And what is the defense going to do when the opposing offense only has one legitimate receiving threat? You're going to double team the one legitimate threat. So DK was always double teamed, couldn't throw it to him, and nobody else could consistently get open versus man coverage. So what is Rodgers supposed to do? Just throw it up into harm's way all the time and get a bunch of interceptions? No, I thought he played a very smart brand of football where he would, dump it off, to Kenny Gainwell and Jalen Warren and Darnell Washington, and, quick passes to DK to, get them going after the catch and, play methodical football, not take a lot of sacks, not turn the football over, play efficiently in the red zone. And that's what they did. And as a result, they took a team with a bottom three, maybe the worst receiver room in football, and Rodgers was able to lead an offense that was above league average in scoring offense. How many times has that happened in the last decade in the NFL, Ponzi, where a team with a bottom 3 wide receiver room in the league ended up having a top 16 offense in terms of scoring points? Like, it doesn't happen very often. And maybe Josh Allen if you got like an incredible quarterback, but like I think Rodgers did the absolute most that he could have done with this team last year. And if you get him 2 more legitimate receiving weapons, that's going to open everything up. It's going to open up DK Metcalf because he's not going to be getting double teamed. Rodgers is going to be having multiple options to throw to when he gets man coverage. I just think that everything opens up if you fix the wide receiver room. And I think if you're taking a look at the Steelers season last year and you're saying Aaron Rodgers was the problem with the offense, I just have to respectfully disagree with that. And, those are my reasons why. $2 from Bernard again says, Jack, do you still think A-Rod is coming back? Listen, man, I don't know. But if I had to guess, I would say yes. And the reason why is apparently he's had multiple conversations with Mike McCarthy. Like, it'd be one thing if he called Mike when he got the job to congratulate him. But, like, to have several conversations with the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, like, what are those conversations about? Like, it's got to be, how would the offense look with me returning? What kind of weapons would I want in free agency? Stuff like that. Football-related talks. And I don't think Rodgers would be engaging in those types of talks if he was legitimately thinking of walking away. I still think he loves the game. He left last season in a great spot physically. There's a lot of great people that he knows from his NFL journey, like James Campen, our new offensive line coach, that are on the staff now. I just don't see any reason why he would want to walk away at this point, especially if this team is going to fix the wide receiver room this year. So if I had to guess right now, I would say yes, he's coming back. But retirement absolutely is still on the table as far as I'm concerned. $2 from Bernard. Again, says Big Ben arm and Breeze arm fell off. Yeah, that's the thing that you got to look at, right? Like, if you're going to be looking at these older quarterbacks, a quarterback is washed and done when he can't throw the ball down the field anymore. Rodgers threw a 70-yard pass in the air last year, guys. Like, I think Kirk Cousins is 6 years younger than Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron can still throw the ball 30 yards further than Kirk Cousins in a long ball competition. Like, I think Rodgers still has the gas. People in the Steelers building said his arm talent was unbelievable, even at age 42. So people talk about these older quarterbacks falling off. It's like, yeah, if their arm strength leaves them, but if they still have great arm strength, if they still have an ability to process the game the way that Rodgers does, he's still got quick feet in the pocket. Like, if you give him the proper weapons, he can be an in-structure playmaker for you that can lead to a really good offensive product. So, that's kind of the difference between Big Ben, Breeze, Kirk Cousins, and a guy like Aaron Rodgers, is that Rodgers still has his arm strength. $2 from Bernard, or maybe not. Oh, another one from Bernard says, A-Rod's arm has not. Correct. And then Bernard says, I rather A-Rod get the ball out fast then. Yeah. That's one of the great things. That was one of the big upgrades from going from Russell Wilson and Justin Fields to Aaron Rodgers last year. Rodgers would get the ball out of his hands. You know what I'm saying? Like, Rodgers had the quickest time to throw. It led to the lowest pressure rate in football, whereas the previous year, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields would hold the ball forever, and they get sacked a bunch of times, and it would put you into third and forever situations, and, there goes the offense. But Rodgers would get the ball out fast, efficiently, to the right person every single time, and if you get the right receiving weapons paired with that football mind, I think you're going to see a much better offensive product with the same quarterback. $2 from Bernard again says hold on to it long and take sacks. Yep. Bernard again says Florio said Kirk give the Steelers a better chance. Definitely disagree with that. Kirk Cousins, he can barely throw the ball 40 yards down the field. No. Rodgers still plays. I mean, I would say Rodgers' football IQ is higher than Kirk's. He throws with more anticipation, all that different stuff. So, yeah, no. Kirk is just done. He's a backup quarterback. $2 from Bernard says to win then A-Rod. Just put all these in one message, Bernard. You don't have to split these up into a million twos. I appreciate it, but you can just put it all in one. Bernard with another 2 says A-Rod said nobody close to him. talks to the media. Exactly. Okay, so there we go. We got through all of Bernard's twos. I appreciate you, Bernard. We all appreciate you, my friend, the $2 king here at Steelers Talk. All right, now it is time for my favorite segment of the entire NFL calendar. We split it up into 2 parts this year because it's such a beast. The perfect Steelers offseason plan for the 2026 offseason is finally here, guys. I know you guys have been asking for it. Now it's here, and let's get into it. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today is part 1 of the video that we lovingly refer to as The Beast. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite, video that I do during the entire NFL calendar year, which is my annual perfect offseason plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2026 offseason. We're going to be covering everything from roster cuts to free agency to trades, all the way cultivating in a 7-round Steelers mock draft. I put a ton of work into this, guys, so I greatly appreciate your guys' support. And make sure you guys click that subscribe button, because if you guys want dedicated Steelers coverage for free on YouTube, this is the place for you. We have over 115,000 Steelers fans that have already subscribed to the channel. And the reason why we have that kind of following, guys, it's the largest individually run Steelers program anywhere here on YouTube, is because we provide you guys consistent and daily videos for free, breaking news coverage every time the Steelers make a big move. We go live twice a week, and all this content, guys, comes to you 100% free right here on YouTube. So if you don't want to miss anything, make sure you guys click that subscribe button, because we're just getting started here during the 2026 offseason. So on today's show, in part 1, here is everything that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to get into some roster cuts. We have 1 blockbuster trade, 1 contract restructure, 3 contract extensions, and then we'll get into NFL free agency, all the players that I would be re-signing and then signing an NFL free agency from outside the organization to join the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, before I get into all my moves here, guys, and before we start with this plan, I want you guys to keep in mind that this is not a predictions video, okay? This is an idealized version of how I would like the Steelers 2026 offseason to play out. This is not something where I'm saying these are the moves the Steelers are necessarily going to make. These are the moves that I said, if I can make these moves, I would absolutely love the offseason to play out this way. So with that said, I will try to keep it somewhat realistic. I'm not going to be like, I'm going to trade a 7th-round pick for Patrick Mahomes. That's the ideal situation. No, I'm going to keep this, and I'm going to try to keep this somewhat realistic within the realm of possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And where we'll start here with this offseason plan is where we start in terms of the cap space that the Pittsburgh Steelers have at their disposal heading into this offseason. And when you account for the $22 additional million that is going to be added to the cap space when the cap officially gets adjusted for this year, the Steelers will be sitting at least around $67 million. And that could get up to $70 million, by the way, if the higher end of the estimate for the cap space increase for the National Football League takes place. But for this particular plan, I'm going to go on the lower side of that to be safe, and we'll start at around $67 million. But I want to get more cap space, guys, so I'm going to make some moves to create some. And we'll start with a couple roster cuts. I'm going to save $10 million by cutting Jonnu Smith and Mason Rudolph. Jonnu, just not worth it, plain and simply. He needs to go. That one's a no-brainer. But then Mason Rudolph, I just want younger backup options at the quarterback position. I don't think that this team's in a position where they should be having an older veteran quarterback in there, and I would just rather have that $3 million at my disposal in free agency this year than keeping him on the roster. I'm also going to restructure DK Metcalf's contract with the cap going up by tens of millions of dollars every single year with the new media rights deals. That money, I think, is better spent in future seasons. So I'm going to restructure DK Metcalf's contract to lower his cap hit for 2026 significantly and save the team nearly $18 million against the cap with that move. Now, this is going to be the hardest part of this offseason plan for me, and I'm going to trade TJ Watt to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in exchange for a pretty decent 2nd-round pick. Tampa Bay runs a 3-4 defense, perfect for TJ Watt. They need edge rusher help. And I just think this offseason, guys, something's going to have to give. Nick Herbig is done being a backup player. He wants to get extended. He wants to be a full-time starter. And if that happens, I'm guessing he's going to tell the Steelers, you can either extend me and start me, or you can trade me away. And I just do not want to let go of a 24-year-old Nick Herbig in favor of a 31-year-old TJ Watt, who has a $42 million cap hit heading into this year. He wasn't very productive as a pass rusher last season. He's not the type of player that can beat double teams anymore. He gets shut down by double teams, and for somebody making $42 million against the cap, he needs to be somebody like a Myles Garrett or a Micah Parsons. $42 million against the cap is quarterback level money. And for me, I think I would rather take the $12 million in additional cap space and the second-round pick, and I get to keep Nick Herbig by making this move. Personally, guys, I'm a huge TJ Watt fan. I'm always going to be a fan of his. I love him as a player. I still think he's a really good player, which is why I think you can get a second-round pick in exchange for him. But sometimes you have to make tough decisions for the betterment of the team, and I would rather do this trade and get a lot of that money off the Steelers' books in future seasons and, bite the bullet here, then keep him continue to regress, and then we're on the hook for the tens of millions of dollars that is still left on his massive contract. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you accept this trade to send TJ Watt to the Buccaneers in exchange for a second-round pick? I think this is a pretty realistic trade return for a guy like TJ Watt at his age and with his contract. I think a second-round pick is fair for both sides. So give me an A for accept or D for decline. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. Well, I tell you about our sponsor today. Give me an A for accept or D for decline. With that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Prize Picks. Shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting this basketball season. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Prize Picks is super simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all your favorite sports, anything from basketball to baseball, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, and even esports. You guys can get it done all right now on Prize Picks. And a new feature from Prize Picks that I absolutely love is early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So after all the moves that I make in terms of the trade and in the restructure and the cuts, that saves us quite a bit of money. And now we're going into NFL free agency and, getting extensions done with about $107 million projected for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into this offseason, which is plenty enough to fill out this roster with a lot of quality talent. So before we get into the extensions and free agency, I want to let you guys know my personal rule for contracts when it comes to this perfect offseason plan. I cannot do anything less than what the Spotrac or Pro Football Focus market value is at this current point in time is projected at. So if you think any of the figures that I use on today's show are unrealistic, I might even agree with you, but at least Spotrac and Pro Football Focus are projecting that at this point in time. Okay, so I'm going to start with Nick Herbig and extending him, keeping him here in Pittsburgh. If I'm trading away TJ Watt, you bet your sweet ass I'm keeping Nick Herbig here for the long haul. 4 years, $56 million total over the course of that contract. Right now, that's the Spotrac market value. So if you disagree with that, you think he's worth more than that, I would actually agree with you on that. But right now, they just project him at $14 million per season. So I'm going to take advantage of that in this idealized version of the Steelers offseason. I think that would be a beautiful move for the Pittsburgh Steelers to pull off. Then Joey Porter Jr., I'm also going to extend for 4 years. I think he's a lockdown #1 man-to-man corner, and I'm going to pay him like it, $25 million per season, $100 million total over 4 years. I think he earned it with his play last year. I thought he should have been an all-pro, and he's still super young with those go-go gadget long arms. I'm happy to pay him this contract, which, by the way, isn't even the tops of the tops in the league. I mean, it's top 5 in the league, which I think he's earned. And over the course of this contract, by the end of it, he's actually going to be more of a steal for the Pittsburgh Steelers, in my opinion. Then I'm also going to extend the Wizard of Oz, Chris Boswell, give him a 2-year extension along with the 1 year he currently has left on his deal. I'm going to give him $12.8 million over the course of those 2 years. Okay, so those are the 3 contract extensions that I am making on today's offseason plan. Then we can get to the players that I would be re-signing. Now, if you've been watching the channel lately, you guys know that I prefer to bring back Aaron Rodgers as this team's QB1 for a season here to kind of, get the organization its bearings at the quarterback position, give McCarthy a chance to work with some younger quarterbacks and develop them behind an all-time great quarterback. I think Rodgers gives this team the best possible chance to succeed and potentially go on a run. If they can put together a really good defense and, the offensive line continues to grow and they get him some actual good receiving weapons, something that he didn't have last year, I think Rodgers could do something very similar to what Tom Brady did in his age 43 season and get, the Steelers into Super Bowl contention just like Brady did with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his age 43 season. I still think Rodgers has the cerebral football mind that you need for a Mike McCarthy offense. I still think he's got the arm talent. I think the players in the locker room want him back for those reasons, and he's also super cheap, just $10 million. You're not going to find a quarterback of this caliber against the cap for that little. I think it's the best option for the Pittsburgh Steelers if he wants to come back. So true or false? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. Aaron Rodgers is the best option for the Pittsburgh Steelers at QB1 in 2026. Give me a T if you think that statement is true, or type F if you think that statement is false. F Ponzi for the graphic mistake there, but F for false, T for true. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Now let's get into Isaac Seumalo, who I'd bring back on a 1-year, $8 million deal. That's his current market value projection. And I think that it's important to bring him back for me because he's the elder statesman in the offensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You've got a lot of really young players, Dylan Cook and Broderick Jones. One of those guys is going to be your starting left tackle, then your entire right side of the O-line is going into their third year. Okay, Seumalo is that, veteran that everyone can turn to as the voice in the locker room along the offensive line. And for just $8 million, this is a steal for a player as good as Isaac Seumalo is. Plus, you keep continuity on the offensive line. Then I'll get to James Pierre. And actually, right now, I could have just given him $1.8 million because that's what Spotrac is projecting for him. I'm going to give him something a little bit more, appropriate in my opinion, $5 million per season for a number 2 corner. In my opinion, more realistically, it might be $10 million per season. But I'm going to take advantage here of Spotrac and Pro Football Focus being behind on the times here. James Pierre was an absolutely fantastic cover corner for the Steelers defense last year. And if the Steelers can bring him back at a decent price tag, I absolutely want to do that. Then I'm also going to bring back Aaron Rodgers' guy, Kenneth Gainwell, to pair him back up with Jaylen Warren. I think Warren and Gainwell were one of the best running back duos in football. It was the strength of the Steelers offense last year, and right now Spotrac's allowing me to bring him back for 2 years, $8 million. You look at Fox Sports, Pro Football Focus, ESPN. Nobody is expecting Kenneth Gainwell to be like a top 5 running back on the market. I think everyone's expecting Gainwell to get a lot of money in free agency, but with all the different high-level running backs hitting the market this year, I actually think Gainwell doesn't make all that much, and I think the Steelers end up being the highest bidder for Kenneth Gainwell's services. So I'll bring him back, and then 2 kind of reserve players, rotational guys that I'll bring back as well. Daniel Ekuale, I know he's coming off a major injury, but 1 year, $2 million for somebody that's a very stout run defender. I'll do that every day of the week, and then Connor Hayward, tight end fullback hybrid there that Aaron Rodgers likes, bring him back on the vet minimum. Those are 2 deals that I would do as well. In terms of Broderick Jones, you have to make a decision as to whether or not you're going to accept or decline the 5th-year option. For me, I'm going to decline that 5th-year option. It's a pretty easy answer for me. I'm not even confident he's going to be a starting offensive lineman for the Steelers next year. Dylan Cook, I thought, played better than him on film towards the end of last year, and I do think that that's going to be a competition heading into Latrobe next year that Broderick may lose. So it's going to be an interesting year for Broderick. They might move him to left guard if Seumalo leaves in free agency. There's a lot of different possibilities there for Broderick, but I just don't see any scenario where the Steelers accept his 5th-year option and it being a good idea. So before we get into the rest of today's show and I go into NFL free agency, bring in some players from outside the organization to join Aaron Rodgers and crew here in Pittsburgh. Click that thumbs up icon if you enjoy and you're enjoying today's show. Of course, this is a 2-part off-season plan here, guys. So if you appreciate the time and the effort we put into this channel, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. All right, so now let's start by getting Aaron Rodgers, probably his preferred free agent wide receiver, Romeo Doubs. Right now, the market value is projecting 2 years, $24 million total. That's just $12 million a season. And for somebody that is a really good separator, really good route runner, can make some tough catches down the sideline, and can start the season as this team's number 2 receiver that also has established chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, I think Romeo Doubs, is a good fit for what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for. I'm going to go very wide receiver heavy, by the way, guys, in my mock draft for this perfect offseason plan in part 2, just so you guys know that. But Romeo Doubs, I think, is probably the guy I'd go with in free agency, especially for the price tag. But then I'll get a nose tackle here, a legit one, not Keanu Benton who gets driven backwards and can't anchor. I'm going to go with DJ Reader, one of the best nose tackles of the last half decade in the National Football League. Took him maybe a little bit of a step back last year in Detroit, but he's still a stout run defender, can still get after quarterbacks a bit, and you don't need him to be DJ Reader of old here in Pittsburgh. You've got a lot of good pass rushers on this defense. You just need somebody that can hold their gap in the middle. DJ Reader, more than capable of doing that for a projected 1-year, $4.5 million contract. Then I'll go get a Alohi Gilman to pair with Deshaun Elliott and Jalen Ramsey in this kind of 3-safety, kind of a big nickel package that I'm expecting Patrick Graham to deploy. Gilman has played in a lot of these kind of big nickel style systems before in Los Angeles and then recently with the Baltimore Ravens. I think that he would fit perfectly with what Patrick Graham is trying to do here. 2 years, $8.5 million, I think is a good deal. Then I'll go with the punt god here, bringing him in to pair with Chris Boswell. We're going to have the best special teams in the National Football League, or especially when you're in Acrisure Stadium. That's a tough stadium to kick in. So you need guys that know what they're doing, both in place kicker and with your punter. I think Corliss Waitman has done a pretty decent job for Pittsburgh over the last several years, but arises probably the best in football, so I'm going to pay him like it. 4 years, $16 million to bring in the punt god. Then I'll bring in a backup quarterback that's worked with Mike McCarthy before and looked pretty good in the preseason for the Chargers last year in Trey Lance, former top 3 picks, a lot of arm talent, showed off some awesome touch throws in the preseason last year, and you can get him for a 2-year, $6 million deal. He could be a potential long-term option at the quarterback position after a year working with McCarthy again, and then a year working under Aaron Rodgers, and provide some long-term competition for Will Howard in the quarterback room here in Pittsburgh at a pretty decent price tag. Now make sure you guys tune in for part 2 of this perfect offseason plan for my 7-round Steelers mock draft. I'm just going to spoil it for you guys. We have multiple trade-up scenarios in that mock draft to pair with this perfect offseason plan that I've laid out for you guys today. But make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already to never miss a video from us here at Steelers Talk. I greatly appreciate all of your guys' support. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. Part 1 is in the books. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot more super chats to get to before we get into our mock draft. So, sit with the free agency picks, sit with the re-signings and the TJ Watt trade and all that different stuff. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. Bernard coming in with a 10 says, I think guys will want Will because of the unknown and not A-Rod because of the known. Yeah, man, I think Steelers fans are just tired of the older quarterback play, and I think this strikes at something that Steelers fans are, very reasonably feeling right now, which is that they're tired and frustrated with going and trying to quote-unquote win now, but then you win 10 games and then you lose in the first round of the playoffs. In fact, you get blown out in the first round of the playoffs. And I understand that frustration. And because it's happened over and over and over again over the last pretty much decade at this point, I can't blame people for being like, let's just start over and let's bring in a younger quarterback and, let's have something new in here for the first time in a while. And I understand that thinking. I do. But the chances of Will Howard, like if you had to say, what are the % chance that Will Howard plays well, like he's a good starting quarterback in the NFL next year? What are the chances of that? If he starts next year, definitely less than 10%. It might be less than 5%. All right. He's never played a down in the NFL. He has a long way to go in terms of where he needs to go from at Ohio State to where he needs to be at the NFL level if he's going to become a starter. Now, I think that Will Howard, especially if he has the proper time to develop, does have some traits where he could be a starter down the road. But, if you're going to go into the season completely gambling your entire year on Will Howard, a 6th-round pick that's never even played a down in the preseason, that is just not a smart strategy. And I think at best, you go into the season with him at QB2 And if your number one starter stinks and the season's over, then you can turn the wheel at the end of the season and see if he can, provide a spark. I think that's probably the best case scenario for Will Howard. I think throwing him to the Wolves next year as this team's bona fide QB1 is a bad idea. And I think you got to have a veteran here to at least start the season off, or at the very least, Ponzi, compete with him in camp, because you can't just give Will Howard the job, in my opinion. That's a mistake. $2 from CL Rose says, do you think Mike T will attend the 2026 NFL Draft? Could he be a guest on McAfee? Like that, I would say it may be a possibility, but it seems like Mike is perfectly content just not doing anything media-wise. Like, he's not a big media guy. It just seems like he's cool just keeping his private life private and, just kind of staying out of everybody's way. So would it surprise me if he goes on like McAfee as a guest or something? Like, it wouldn't shock me, but I personally think he's probably going to stay out of the limelight. All right, next question. Coming in from Bernard, $10. What's up, Bernard? Says, I think A-Rod is an Iron Man. He don't get a lot of credit for that. Yeah, I mean, dude, 2 years ago with the Jets, he played through a partially torn hamstring. He played through a broken thumb his final season in Green Bay. And, like, people trash him for the way he played under those injuries, but the fact that he was even playing is impressive. He played through that broken wrist for most of the second half of the season here in Pittsburgh. Like, he's tough as nails, man. He is. And that's something that I really appreciate about him, and I appreciated about him last year, only missing that 1 week to that wrist injury and then being back as soon as he could. So $5 from Interstellar Reaper says, Jack, you can't cut Mason Rudolph. I remember when he saved Christmas with Pickens. I do remember that, man. And like I've said about Mason over the last several years, he is a Steelers legend for life as far as I'm concerned. But I traded another Steelers legend in TJ Watt in my perfect offseason as well. Sometimes the tough decision is the correct decision, especially when you're in a salary cap league. All right? Like, if you think, just keeping, these players that have sentimental value is the right decision every time, it's just not. It's just not, man. Like, sometimes it is the right decision to let go. And as much as I will always remember that night that Mason Rudolph saved Christmas, he's not somebody that I think makes sense with the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into next year. $10 from Bernard. I think people need to leave Ben alone. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. Yeah, man. I mean, if Ben wanted to be private, it'd be one thing, but he's very clearly putting himself into the public arena with his podcast. So, like, listen, man, like, people get criticized, stuff like that. I get criticized every day on this channel from you guys in the comments section. So I'm perfectly okay with that. It comes with the territory. So
I will say, whenever we had that TJ Watt trade, a lot of people said that he was worth the first.
Listen, man, 31-year-old guy, big contract. Like, maybe somebody would give up a first-round pick for him.
It'd be a late one, though.
But it'd be a very late one. And honestly, and maybe I could have done a first-round pick because it's a perfect offseason, right? It's not a quote-unquote realistic projection, but like, I do think a second-round pick for somebody that's 31, has that much money on his on his contract. The fact that he just wasn't dominant last year. Like, I'm sorry, guys, he just wasn't dominant last year. He was a good player, but he wasn't dominant. He wasn't Myles Garrett last year. He wasn't Micah Parsons when he was healthy last year. Like, he wasn't this player that was just dominating on a weekly basis. That's just not who TJ Watt was last year. And, projecting him forward as he gets older, I don't think teams are going to look at him as a first round, type of projection. I think second round is probably where it ends up landing.
One of those things too you got to consider is his health. His health has been a really big thing.
He's had some sort of injury the last 4 years, so that's going to come into play as well. So maybe with the idealized version of things, I could have gotten a late first round pick for him, but I honestly think the more realistic projection in terms of a trade for TJ Watt is a second round pick, and I think that that's fair for both sides. If I'm being completely honest with you, the Steelers get his money off their books in future seasons. They get a second round pick. I mean, second round pick's an awesome pick. That's a future starter. That could be a starter for the next 10, 15 years here in Pittsburgh. So, a second-round pick's a pretty darn good pick, guys, especially for an aging former superstar in T.J. Watt, in my opinion. $10 from Bernard says Mike Tannenbaum hates Big Ben too. I don't care what that idiot has to say about anything, if I'm being honest. Another one here, Bernard says, still can't believe Tannenbaum said take Kirk over A-Rod, LOL. God, man, he's just so dumb. I can't believe it. $10 from Steeler Kev. Appreciate you, Kev. Thank you for the 10. That gets you into the raffle there. What are we at? $76 from Bernard today. That's absolutely awesome. We also have a PayPal here. So I'll send it your way here, Ponzi. And, of course, whenever we get through the Super Chats, we'll get into part 2 of our perfect offseason plan here. Actually, you know what? Let's get into the second half. Let's go into part 2, and then we can do the rest of the Super Chats before the mailbag. There you go. All right. So if I haven't gotten to your Super Chat yet, we're going to hit it after the next segment. I just want to make sure that we get through our segments here before we get to Super Chat. So you guys have seen part 1 of The Beast, my perfect offseason plan. Now it's time for a full 7-round mock draft to pair with that offseason plan. Let's get into it right now. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today is part 2 of 2 of my annual perfect offseason plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2026 offseason. In part 1, we covered everything from roster cuts to a blockbuster trade to NFL free agency, setting the table for today's show, which is going to be a 7-round mock draft with multiple trades. If you guys haven't watched part 1 yet, I would recommend you guys go watch it right now. I'll put it the chip to that in the top right above me right here on screen, so you guys can check that out, because a lot of the context of the picks that I'm making on today's mock draft come from the free agency moves and the roster cuts and all the different stuff that I do in part 1. So make sure you guys go check out part 1 if you haven't already. But today, it is a 7-round mock draft with multiple trades. The Steelers go into this mock draft with a number of draft picks at their disposal, and today I'm going to be making a lot of moves to make the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers a little bit more bright. Now, a little bit of a quick reminder that, this perfect offseason plan is not necessarily a predictions video. This is more of an idealized version of how I would love for the Steelers offseason to play out. So there's going to be some players here maybe in this mock draft that I'm expecting to probably go maybe a little bit higher than I'm ending up taking them, but I am taking them in the general range that I think that they could fall to if the board falls the way that I'm hoping that it could. So make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon. If we get 1,000 likes on today's show, we'll actually do an off-season predictions video. This is my perfect off-season plan. If you guys want me to actually predict what the Steelers are going to do, we can do another video like that on the channel. If we get 1,000 likes on today's show, I'll do a full off-season predictions video for your Pittsburgh Steelers if you prefer that style of content. But I just want to remind you guys that in part 1, we did trade T.J. Watt to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I know a lot of Steelers fans that love T.J. Watt like I do are going to want a first-round pick for T.J. Watt. But just the reality on the ground is T.J. has had the last 4 years, he's missed games with injuries. He's 31 years old. He's still a very expensive player, and he's on the downward he's on the decline in terms of his athleticism. So I don't think you're going to be able to get a first-round pick out of him. I think a good, and fair compensation for him is a second-round pick. I think for a team like the Buccaneers that is trying to win now, I think this is something that they would be willing to do as well. So this adds a second-round pick to the Steelers' total here, which means we're going to have 6 picks in the top 100 to start this mock draft. 1 in the first, 2 in the second, and then 3 in the third. Then you have a total of 7 picks on day 3 as well, 2 fourths, a fifth, 2 sixths, and 2 sevenths, rounding out to 13 total draft picks for the Pittsburgh Steelers to start here in this mock draft. So that obviously gives the Steelers a lot of opportunities to fill out this roster with young talent and set the table for the future here in Pittsburgh under new head coach Mike McCarthy. So without further ado, let's kick off this mock draft here with a trade up in round 1. I'm going to have Omar Khan pick up that phone, call Jerry Jones in Arlington, Texas, and trade up to the number 12 overall selection here. This is going to be the trade details. I'm going to trade pick number 21 and then one of our second-round picks, number 56 overall, to move up to number 12. And I'm going to go and get, hopefully, the future number 1 receiver for the next 15 years here in Pittsburgh, which is Makai Lemon, the wide receiver out of USC. And I think that Makai Lemon's a special player, man. Like, he's not going to be like the craziest tester at the combine, but this guy is just such a good football player. He tempos his routes to perfection. His foot quickness and change of direction are incredible. His hands, for somebody of his size, like vice grips for hands. He can win on the outside. He can play in the slot. He reminds me so much from a physicality to an athletic profile standpoint of Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. And, you know, these guys, he reminds me a lot of Jackson coming out of Ohio State, who, by the way, ended up going number 20 overall to the Seattle Seahawks. So maybe even Makai could fall to the Steelers, and they don't have to trade up this much to go get him. But, man, Makai Lemon is getting a lot of traction in NFL draft communities right now, and for good reason. This guy's a hell of a football player. I think he could be a day one contributor for the Steelers offense and be an excellent complement to DK Metcalf here in Pittsburgh for the next half decade. So what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Is Makai Lemon worth trading up for if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers? Give me a yes or no down there in the comment section. Obviously, I believe that he is worth trading up for, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comments for today's pinned question. Just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today. Well, I tell you about our sponsor, simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comments. You guys have been asking for merch here on Steelers Talk for a long time. We're finally getting into the merch game, and you guys can join the Steel City drinking team and get an official t-shirt to commemorate that by going to chatsports.com/pitgreen. That link is down there in the comments and description. It'll take you to our website where you guys can make a purchase today for $29.99. The design, I helped the design team here at Chat Sports come up with this myself. You got the green, you've got the gold lettering, and it's also limited edition. This is only going to be available this year before St. Patrick's Day, and then it's gone forever. All right, guys? So if you want one of these, you got to strike while the iron is hot. And my bosses tell me, guys, the more that we sell, the more merch opportunities we're going to get here on Steelers Talk. So when they make big moves, if they draft Makai Lemon, we could do something fun in terms of the merch game with that draft pick. We can do a lot of fun stuff here at Chat Sports and here at Steelers Talk if we can push this product. So if you guys want to get your Steel City drinking team t-shirt today, get yours today. chatsports.com/pitgreen to make it happen. I greatly appreciate your guys' support. And with that, let's get back to the mock draft where we're at pick number 46 here in round 2. And I'm going to take the safety out of Oregon, Dylan Thieneman. And this is somebody that is getting actually a bit of first-round buzz right now. But I think that, you know, with safety being a lower value position, all those different things, there's multiple good safeties in this class. It's possible that Thieneman could fall to this pick, and I think he'd be a perfect fit for the Pittsburgh Steelers on the defensive side of the ball to pair with Deshaun Elliott, Jalen Ramsey. He could even be a big nickel once Ramsey eventually moves on. I did bring in Alohi Gilman in free agency in my perfect offseason plan, but I think Thieneman and Gilman would really duke it out in camp to see who would be the better safety heading into the year. Really, really good football player, man. He's got good size. He takes on blocks well as a safety in the run game, good tackler, and he's got the athleticism to play out in space as well. So I think Patrick Graham's defense, you got to be able to cover a lot of ground and tackle. I think Thieneman does both of those very, very well, and I think he could do that as early as year 1. So now let's trade back into round 2 here and get another second-round pick and trade up, and I'm going to move up to the number 58 overall selection and give up 2 of our third-round draft picks, number 76 and 99, to move back into the second round with the 49ers at pick number 58. And with this draft selection, I am going to be taking another wide receiver here, somebody that is going to be an electric yak threat for Aaron Rodgers with those quick dump-offs on screens, all those different things, not to mention be one of the best punt returners in football in year one of his NFL career, and that's Zachariah Branch, the wide receiver out of Georgia. Now, Branch, at times on his film, looks a little bit like Tyreek Hill in terms of his ability to make catches and then just make people miss. His change of direction, his acceleration, and his long speed are special. His vision with the ball in his hands are awesome. Now, he does have, some deficiencies in terms of he likes to catch the ball with his body and not his hands. He likes to, kind of chest catch it a lot. He also jumps when he catches the football a lot, which kind of puts him in a bad position. He's not really smooth transitioning after the catch the way that you would like, but I think he's an underrated route runner. Georgia kind of used him as more of a true gadget piece, and that might be kind of his role early on in his career at the Steelers, but I think he's got the athletic juice to be a really good route runner at the NFL level as well. And eventually, if you move on from DK Metcalf and you got Mekhi Lemon, then you got Zachariah Branch, that could be a dynamic duo for years, and Branch can give you a lot of special teams of value as well on day one. Then we get to round 3 here at pick number 85. I'm going to take a corner out of Florida, somebody that I've just gotten into his tape, and I've really enjoyed it. It's Devin Moore from Florida, and he was a highly recruited guy, long arms, big body type of guy, and that fits the Patrick Graham type of mold of cornerback, because remember, he comes from the Belichickian school of defensive play calling, and they like their corners big. They're in the Belichick defense. So I like Devin Moore in terms of the athletic fit and the body type fit, but also, his film from his past season here at Florida was really, really good, in my opinion. And he still has a little ways to go, and I do think that if the Steelers make this pick, it won't be to start him right away. In my perfect offseason plan, I bring back James Pierre. Brandon Echols is still on the roster, so Moore would be more of a developmental piece, but eventually when James Pierre moves on, or if he doesn't have a good season, Devin Moore could potentially be somebody that steps in future years as a really good CB2 alongside Joey Porter Jr. Now, why not, man? Let's make one more trade up here on at the start of day 3, actually, at the top of round 4. I'm going to pair our pair of round 4 picks to just move up to 102 with the Las Vegas Raiders, give them an additional round 4 pick here. And I'm going to go out and take an interior offensive lineman that can be our backup center, as well as maybe a future solution at starting left guard, and that's Logan Jones out of Iowa. And if you know anything about Iowa offensive linemen, you know that they coach them up extremely well, there in Des Moines. And Iowa City, I should say. And Logan is somebody that's really tough. He played center for them, so he can back up Zach Frazier if he gets injured. But also, I think he projects pretty well as a guard at the NFL level as well. And with Isaac Seumalo coming back on just a 1-year deal, in my perfect offseason plan, Logan Jones could be on track to be the future starter at left guard with this selection, and I like this one quite a bit. Then we get to round 5. I'm going to take one of my favorite linebackers in this entire class, Bryce Betcher out of Oregon. He played center field for the Oregon baseball team. This guy, has great field vision, great hand-eye coordination. You have to have great hand-eye to play baseball. And, this guy, I think, is pretty well-built linebacker. Now, I do think he has a little ways to go in terms of his development. Not sure if he's going to be able to play right away, but in my perfect offseason plan, I'm keeping Patrick Queen, I'm keeping Peyton Wilson, I'm keeping Malik Harrison. Betcher can learn and develop behind those guys for a year and then eventually work his way into the starting lineup in future seasons here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then around 6, I'll take a tight end here that I really, really liked here at Shrine Bowl here in Frisco, Texas this year. That's Dallin Bentley, the tight end out of Utah. Big guy, but he can run like a deer, and he's got very, very smooth athleticism for somebody of his size. Can get open, can run some good routes, and he can run after the catch. So I really like what he brings to the table. That size allows him to, be potentially a future wide tight end if Darnell Washington ends up leaving the Pittsburgh Steelers in future years. Bentley, his type is not Darnell Washington. He's not that big, but if you're looking for somebody to be that bigger tight end to pair with Pat Freiermuth for the future, for whatever reason Darnell Washington doesn't work out here in Pittsburgh, Bentley, I think, plugs in immediately as a good tight end 3 that can develop behind Washington and Freiermuth. And then, if Freiermuth or Washington end up leaving the team in future years, I think Bentley could be an option that could be developed into a pretty decent piece. Then we get to round 6, and if you guys watched part 1, you guys know I'm bringing in Trey Lance as our backup quarterback this year. I'm going to go get his brother, Bryce Lance, the wide receiver out of NDSU. long arms, big body, can make some awesome catches down the field. I'm not sure if he's going to make it to round 6, guys, if I'm being honest. I think when people turn on the film with Bryce Lance, they're going to be pretty impressed. Now, he's not all the way there yet. He's going to need a little bit of time to cook and develop, but with the Steelers bringing in Mekhi Lemon and Zachariah Branch, not to mention Romeo Doubs in free agency, you already have DK Metcalf. Lance isn't under pressure to play right away, man. Like, he can come in, he can develop, he can, try to, improve his skill set, at the NFL level. And then if he works out, he's a big body, athletic type guy that, maybe even with Trey Lance as his quarterback, could be, the brother combination here in Pittsburgh that could take the league by storm. Who knows? But, this is kind of one of those high upside, but kind of, low downside type of picks to make if he falls to in round 6. We'll see what kind of hype Bryce Lance gets here during the draft process. Then in round 7, I'll go Taylor Green, the quarterback out of Arkansas. Listen, man, like, this guy can run like a deer. He's got good size, strong arm. But he's going to have to compete with Will Howard for a roster spot, because you got Aaron Rodgers, QB1, Trey Lance, QB2, Will Howard, QB3, and Taylor Green is going to have to take that athleticism and take coaching pretty well if he's going to want to make the day one roster as this team's QB3. But he's got the tools that you look for, man. If he can take to coaching well here under Mike McCarthy and Tom Arth and Brian Angelico, I think that this is a good enough dart throw to make at the quarterback position late day 3. Then in round 7, hey, the Steelers have had pretty good luck taking edge rushers from Wisconsin in the past. Let's go with Mason Rager, the defensive MVP at the Shrine Bowl. Right now, the consensus big board would allow me to take Rager in round 7 at pick 237. And, when I watched him during Shrine Bowl practices, man, this guy just dominated all week, and I couldn't believe this guy wasn't getting more buzz. I remember when Nick Herbig, obviously he goes in round 4 back in the day, but, Rager kind of reminds me of that a little bit, where he is just so good at getting after the quarterback, and I'm just, kind of left wondering why he's not getting more buzz, all right? I'm not saying he's going to be Nick Herbig. Herbig is an awesome player, but I think that this guy can immediately plug in as this team's edge 4, and maybe have some upside to rise up the ranks in his NFL career. But this is my mock draft here for this perfect offseason plan. We end up having 10 draft picks, moving up multiple times for players. Mekhi Lemon in round 1, Dylan Thieneman in round 2, Zachariah Branch trading up for him in round 2 as well, Devin Moore in round 3, Logan Jones in a trade up in round 4, Bryce Betcher in round 5, Dallin Bentley and Bryce Lance in round 6, and then Taylor Green and Mason Rager in round 7. So now to finish up today's show and this perfect offseason plan, let's take a look at the final picture here of what the results are from this perfect offseason in terms of what the lineups would look like for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2026 season. I think it's pretty darn good. Can take a look at the starting offense. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is your starting quarterback, but this time, instead of having Calvin Austin III, Roman Wilson, Adam Thielen, and MVS as your backup receivers, you got Romeo Doubs and Mekhi Lemon. Those are 2 legitimate route runners to pair with DK Metcalf. I think that opens up the offense a lot. On the offensive line, you got Dylan Cook, who played really well for you. Maybe that's Broderick Jones. There'll be a camp battle for that, but I think Cook would probably win it. You got Sayamalu back. You got the entire starting offensive line back from last year, so you get that continuity. You have Pat Freiermuth, who I think is a perfect fit for the Mike McCarthy offense. I think he'll be your tight end 1 next year. Then you got Jaylen Warren back as your number 1 running back. Then in terms of your second wave on the offense, you've got Trey Lance as maybe a future long-term option as your backup quarterback. He's still really young, still has a lot of arm talent, gets another year to work under Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy. I think that's a great situation for him. But you got Will Howard as your QB3, Taylor Green as QB4. There'll be a camp battle to see who QB3 is. Kenneth Gainwell is back at RB2. That's huge. Caleb Johnson also coming back again at RB3. Connor Hayward as your fullback / tight end hybrid. Still got Darnell Washington as your wide tight end, your blocker. You get Dallin Bentley as your tight end 3. Zachariah Branch as a wide receiver 4 / special teams and punt return specialist. You still have Roman Wilson on the roster, so if he develops into a nice piece, he could be a contributor. Ben Skoranek as your blocking receiver will be back, and then you get Bryce Lance as a developmental wide receiver here in Pittsburgh. But then the second wave offensive line, obviously you still have Broderick Jones as a swing offensive tackle / guard. And also, if he loses the left tackle battle next year to Dylan Cook, I think he could be a trade candidate before the trade deadline. You could, swap him for a pretty decent draft pick in 2027. I still think that's a possibility. Spencer Anderson, he can be a swing guard / jumbo tight end like he was this year. Calvin Anderson, obviously back as a swing offensive tackle. And then you get Logan Jones as a backup center / guard, maybe a future option at starting left guard once Isaac Seumalo hits free agency again in 2027. But then on defense, you've got Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig on opposite sides of the defensive line at outside linebacker. I think we saw in the short stint that those two played together when TJ Watt was dealing with his lung issue, that those two guys are more than good enough as a outside linebacker tandem. Then you get Cam Hayward and Derek Harmon returning at defensive end, and then you plug in DJ Reader, a legitimate nose tackle to replace Keanu Benton. But Benton is still on the team. He is a rotational piece that I think would be absolutely lethal as a fourth defensive lineman in this group. You still got Daniel Equale as a really solid run stuffer behind DJ Reader. Y.A. Black returns as well. And you got Mason Rager and Jack Sawyer as decent second wave outside linebackers. Then we get to the inside guys. I think Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson, we're putting some pretty tough spots under the Mike Tomlin and Tara Lawson regime with kind of their older school approach to defense with a lot of single high stuff. They put their linebackers in some really tough positions. I think with Patrick Graham, he's going to put these guys in much better positions to succeed. And I think that, we could be looking at these two guys finally playing up to the standard that we've been hoping that they would play at over the last 2 years. But then if they don't, you do have Malik Harrison, who's a very good thumping type of, early down run defending linebacker. And then you're bringing in Bryce Betcher, who I really like as well. Also, I just noticed I'm bringing in Betcher and Thieneman, both Oregon Ducks that have some chemistry playing together in the same defense. I think that'd be pretty cool if they both become long-term starters here in Pittsburgh. But now we get to the secondary, speaking of Thieneman. I'm not going to put Thieneman in the starting lineup yet, but I do think that he would be competing with Alohi Gilman for that free safety spot. But you got Joey Porter Jr., James Pierre, same cornerback duo that had so much success at the end of last season on the outside. Back in 2026, I think Jalen Ramsey can move back to that big nickel position that he's so good at, playing with instincts, not having to learn a new position in safety like he did last year. And then Deshaun Elliott, of course, will be back from his knee injury that he suffered last year. Then in the second wave there, if those guys get injured, you've got some pretty good options here. Brandon Echols played a lot for the Steelers this past year, played pretty well for somebody that I would consider like a really good backup. You got Devin Moore as part of the future in the secondary here in Pittsburgh. Corey Trice Jr. will be back next year. Dante Kent will be back next year. Maybe one of those guys sticks. But then you get Dylan Thieneman to compete for the starting free safety job with Alohi Gilman. And Sebastian Castro, I still think, has a chance to make this team next year and be a decent piece for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was a UDFA out of Iowa last year that I really liked. Now, in terms of special teams, you've got Chris Boswell as your kicker. You got the punt god, Matt Ariza, at punter, and Christian Kuntz as your long snapper. I think that's about as good as it gets in the National Football League if they can make it happen. But now it is the moment of truth. After 2 long videos breaking down my entire offseason plan and my idealized version of the Steelers offseason, grade it for me down there in the comments section, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk by Chat Sports and this year's Beast, the perfect offseason plan here for 2026. I put in a crap ton of time putting this together every single year, guys. It's my favorite video that I make every single year. So if you enjoyed yourself here watching these last 2 videos, I greatly appreciate your guys' support. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button for more in-depth Steelers content like this all throughout the calendar year. All right, the Beast for 2026 is done, Mr. Ponzi. What'd you think of it, my friend? Did you think it was a pretty darn good plan?
I mean, I really like the plan. I think, obviously, the Steelers have to do something at edge rusher this season, or this offseason. And, in an ideal world, in the perfect world, which I don't think they're going to do it, which is sad, they should trade T.J. Watt.
Yeah.
But, my heart's going to tell them they're going to go Nick Herbig. And it's just really sad because, they don't want to extend him.
Yeah.
It's just...
If this was an off-season predictions video, and I think we still might do that, next week or something. We might do, an off-season predictions video. I think they probably end up trading Nick Herbig, which I'm going to hate that day when and if it comes. Because I love Nick Herbig. I think he's 24 years old, super productive, super efficient. He proved last year multiple instances. I mean, T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith were both injured at different points in the year. He had to start at different points in the year, and he more than held his own. He was an impact player for this defense. He was like a star-level player for this defense when he was asked to take full-time starting reps, and that's against the run as well. He's a good run defender. People say he stinks against the run. That's bullshit. He's a good run defender, and like to lose a 24-year-old budding star edge rusher to keep a 31-year-old guy on a $42 million per season price tag that's declining, I think is going to be a big mistake. But the Steelers are the Steelers, and they held on to Ben for too long, and I think that they're probably going to hold on to T.J. Watt for too long because they want him to be a one-helmet guy. And like for some reason, the Steelers are just so dead set on their players being one-helmet guys, even if they have to overpay them, even if they have to get rid of really good players that are up and coming at their given positions. They just do not want to part ways with quote-unquote franchise legends. And I think that, sometimes that gets in the way of making proper decisions in terms of roster building.
I mean, it's really outdated philosophy in my opinion, but I think, when you look at what your plan consists of on the offensive side of the ball, I think that's a lot more realistic just based off, I think, getting double dipping in wide receivers, or really triple dipping, I believe, in wide receivers in the draft.
Quadruple dipping.
Yeah. Getting those wide receivers because, a lot of people just think, and this is a common sentiment that I see in draft talk, you draft one position, you draft one wide receiver, you don't have to draft wide receiver again. That is just simply not how it works. You're going to have to get guys you're going to have to develop behind. I think Zachariah Branch, Lance are good guys that could develop behind. Zachariah Branch can provide special teams value. I just really like the idea of adding more wide receivers to this team. I think that's something that needs to be, I really think the shell is there for this offense. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back, then we have some questions.
Yeah.
But the shell is here for both the offense and the defense. Maybe linebacker is a little bit more of someone where you would like to draft a little bit earlier, but
if Patrick Queen is back, I would disagree with that.
I mean, even then,
but Queen might get cut.
Might be better.
If Queen gets cut, you got to take a linebacker by the end of day 2.
And luckily for the Steelers, this is a really good linebacker class.
Yeah.
Bryce, I really think, he would be a 4th-round linebacker, a 3rd-round linebacker. He might even get there.
Yeah, but he's a good player. He should be a top 100 player.
The thing is, the linebacker class is so deep this year.
Yep, and it's a lower positional value type of position too.
Exactly.
That same, it's just
there's a lot of good linebackers in this class, man.
Yeah, and I think you're going to be able to get a good linebacker early to mid day 3. I think that it's that deep, and there's good depth to it this year. And Betcher, if he falls to you in round 5, that's the perfect situation for Pittsburgh,
exactly,
in my opinion, which is why he ended up making the perfect offseason plan. So, you look at the plan, you get your running back duo back. That was the strength of your team from last season. The entire offensive line is back. That was another strength of the team last year. What's the difference, Ponzi? You're switching out the offensive play caller for an upgrade in Mike McCarthy, and you're bringing in actually good wide receivers to pair with DK Metcalf, which is going to be good for DK Metcalf too. That's the thing. DK was held back last year in a lot of ways because he was getting double teamed all the time down the field. They would put extra safety help on him on almost every play. Almost every play. Even when they would play single high safety, they would put him on DK's sideline, and they would dare Calvin Austin III or Roman Wilson or MVS or Adam Thielen to beat them one-on-one, and they just couldn't consistently do it. With Romeo Doubs and with Mekhi Lemon, 2 legitimate separators versus man coverage, that's going to open up a lot of opportunities, not only for Rodgers to throw the ball down the field more often, it's going to open it up for DK Metcalf too, and he's going to have a better season than he had last year. Even though he might not get the same amount of the target share that he got last year, he's going to have more yards, he's probably going to have more touchdowns, he's going to be more productive, and he's going to be more worth the money that the Steelers spent on him. You can spend $33 million on a receiver all you want. If he's your only good receiver, defenses are going to double team him. That's just the way that it works in the National Football League.
And I really do think, maybe this is just me overanalyzing the Steelers front office and approach, but I think their approach has been a little bit outdated in terms of the offensive side of the ball for a long time. Because, back in the day, maybe, you could get away with having one star wide receiver. But, now you need to have those guys.
Yep.
I think, what they intended for the season was to lean on the running backs. And, for the for the most part, that kind of did
Well,
work.
they wanted to lean on the tight ends.
The running backs and tight ends.
Like, they wanted to play 12 and 13 personnel, and they did, but they didn't have the players. Jonnu Smith was fucking terrible, and they played him all the time. And he was like a dead body out there. It was like Rodgers was playing 10 on 11 at times. Like, he's just not separating versus man coverage.
And
period.
I really feel like, sometimes Rodgers was even playing like 9 on 11 just because, Calvin Austin, as much as he did provide a specific skill set and, did catch the game winner against Baltimore, it's just he doesn't do it consistently enough. He's so small, and it's just he didn't work with DK Metcalf. And he didn't work with, Roman Wilson to do that too. If Roman Wilson developed into that Brandon Cooks role, maybe we've been having a different conversation.
Yeah.
But, I feel like Roman Wilson needs to be, wide receiver 5 or 6 on this team in order for me to feel confident.
Yeah, wide receiver 4 heading into camp at the very highest. I just don't think you can go into camp with Roman Wilson as you're playing at wide receiver 3. I think that's a bad plan. You got to get 2 new starters in the wide receiver room. All right, 2 new starters. Period. You got to have DK. You got to get 2 guys, whether that's free agency, draft, or both. And perfect offseason, I get Romeo Doubs and Mekhi Lemon. I think that would be perfect. And I think that'd be awesome. And, with the coordinators and the schemes being better, I think that, we've talked about it. Patrick Graham, Mike McCarthy, they've done a good job finding people to elevate the scheme. Now you get the players, and, you give yourself a chance to be next year's version of the Seattle Seahawks, to be this year's version of the Philadelphia Eagles 2 years ago, where you go from 10 wins to a Super Bowl champion. That is the goal, all right? And, can I guarantee it's going to happen? No team can guarantee a Super Bowl championship at this point in the NFL offseason. And frankly, no one can guarantee a Super Bowl championship even going into week 1.
And one of those things that people forget about the Seahawks discourse last season, they didn't really do, in terms of swapping out wide receivers and swapping out, teams, they did, obviously get their quarterback. But, on defense especially, they just filled out the holes. I feel like
they just made some tweaks.
Yeah.
They upgraded at quarterback. They upgraded at offensive coordinator. They upgraded at big nickel. And that was really, they made some other moves too, but those were the big ones. And
obviously trading away DK Metcalf too.
Yeah. They retooled the wide receiver room, sure. But you look at what Seattle did last year, it wasn't like a full-blown rebuild. It was a retooling, where they let go of some players that needed to be let go of. They brought in some players and some coaches that really fit their personnel, and it just clicked. And the difference between going 10-7 and 13-4 in the National Football League, guys, is not very far. Okay, and when you have Mike Tomlin, who's a good leader and a good motivator, and players love playing for him, but he has a terrible coaching staff. He brings in older players that don't play well anymore. And you don't address the wide receiver position, it holds the team back. And if you just fix those issues, which I think with a new head coach, the chances of that happening are not zero. The chances of it are actually pretty good with the cap space and draft picks that you have. The chances that the Steelers have a good offseason this year and then they take this thing from 10 wins to 12 or 13 is not as low as people think.
I think, your perfect offseason kind of really tells it because you've really replaced only 6 starters.
Yeah. I think only signed 5 players in free agency outside of the organization, and one of them was a punter.
Yeah. And, I really think that with the Steelers offseason, they need to realize, and hopefully Omar Khan does a great job of this, is that they need to retool some of the things that were a little bit outdated under Mike Tomlin's scheme.
Yep.
And I think, Mike McCarthy fixes the offense. I think, Patrick Graham for Terrell Austin is a huge upgrade in my opinion. I feel like, getting those 2 more recent offense and defensive, guys, I think that really does a lot more for you than people will think for the Steelers.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not a big fan of the Mike McCarthy hire, but I will admit the man knows how to run his offense. I have some questions about his game management and some of the penalties.
But even that stuff, the game management, he brought in a game management specialist. So I think that'll help him out.
Exactly.
At least you hope, right?
Yeah, you hope that helps him out. You hope the penalties can get cleaned up. But it all kind of comes down to that they have everything in front of them, and the free agency class is all ahead of them of positions that they could use. Now it depends on, honestly, my whole thing is if Aaron Rodgers comes back or not. That's going to be what's going to be the big pinnacle of this offseason.
It's really is the thing that kickstarts this entire offseason, in my opinion, because I think a lot of moves and a lot of dominoes begin to fall whether or not he decides to come back or not. Because if he doesn't, then like you're starting over with another new quarterback of some degree.
As much as I think a Ty Simpson could be good in this offense, I don't know if it's 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, you're not winning a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback, period.
Exactly.
And you're not winning I mean, usually you don't win Super Bowls with quarterbacks that have never made the playoffs before. So if you get a Malik Willis, if you get who are some other options? Kyler's made it, Geno's made it. Will Howard, if you go with Will Howard, chances of winning a playoff game, minuscule, even if he plays well. So, I think...
I don't think, maybe someone could correct me on this, I don't think there's been a sixth round rookie pick that's won a playoff game in their first year starting.
Tom Brady.
But, I mean, forget about that. Other than Tom Brady.
Yeah, I don't think so. We do have some Venmos and PayPals to get to. $2 PayPal from Raul says, would they move Highsmith to middle linebacker? With Queen to run Herbig and Watt on the edge? No, they would not do that. Highsmith was actually your most productive edge rusher last year by the pressure numbers. He was awesome last year, man.
Don't move him.
When T.J. Watt went down with his lung issue last year, he played like a number one edge rusher during that 4-week stretch. He was awesome. Great run defender. He's also versatile and can go out into coverage. That was a big reason why Tomlin and Austin liked him a lot. It's because they would put those outside linebackers into coverage. And, Watt, Herbig, Highsmith, all of them are awesome at it. All of them are. Also, he's younger. He's honestly on a super team-friendly deal. Like, guys, Alex Highsmith's cap hit next year is less than half what TJ Watt's is. TJ Watt has a $42 million cap hit slated for next year. Alex Highsmith is at like 20. For the efficiency, for the production that you get out of every dollar there, Alex Highsmith is clearly the more valuable player per dollar than TJ Watt. So if I'm trading one of them, both guys have had injuries consistently over the last several seasons. But one guy's older, one guy was less productive last year, and one guy is double the amount of money on the cap. So for me, if I'm letting go of one of those guys, it's pretty easy. I'm letting go of T.J. Watt. And it's a hard decision, man. I would love to keep Watt. I really would. He's a damn good football player. He still is. But he's not what he once was, which was the best defensive player in football. He's not that anymore. And I think we have to come to grips with that. And, if we have to make a tough decision, I think that's the tough decision we have to make. $50 from Rad Doctor. Appreciate you, Rad Doctor. You're a real one. Thank you so much, my friend.
Does he already have a hat?
He already does have a hat. So he is good there. All right, we'll catch up on some super chats. Then we'll get into the mailbag, and then we'll finish up today's show. $10 or $5 from Dylan Lewandowski, my friend. It's good to see you. Says, just wanted to say great show. Keep up the great work. Here we go, dealers. Here we go. $10 from Bernard. Says, I would love to see A-Rod on Big Ben's podcast. Yeah, that'd be a great episode.
He just doesn't do a lot of media, though.
Yeah, like apparently ESPN, NBC, all these media outlets requested interviews with him last year, and he said no to all of them. So, he's somebody that doesn't like to do press stuff. He only does the stuff that he's required to do. People talk about how A-Rod is, desperate for attention, but for a guy that's apparently desperate for attention, he never seeks out media opportunities unless it's on McAfee. I
mean, also, dude literally hides his wife from the media.
Yeah.
He hates media.
Yeah, he's a very private person.
Yeah.
He's a private person that people want information on, so when people get denied access to information from him, they feel like, oh, he's only, withholding the information to get attention, when it's just no, he just wants to be left the fuck alone. $5 from Shula Berg says, would it be better to try to get 2027 draft capital for Watt? I feel like that class is way better, and you might get more value. Listen, I'm not opposed to it. You get a 2027 second-round pick. I think that is something that's I would consider, especially because you already have 12 picks this year, right? So that's something that I would consider, Schuleberg, but it would have to be the right team that I thought, would have a higher second-round draft pick, for example. But I'd have to see what the exact details and the exact proposal would be before I would say yes or no on that. Okay, so, I'm guessing at this point, #Steelers is not going to get on the live show. We might have some. All right, Ponzi might throw in some #Steelers questions in there, but we definitely have enough questions. So without further ado, let's get into this week's mailbag right here on Steelers Talk. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today it is the weekly mailbag where I answer your questions on the black and gold as we prepare for the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine coming up here in Indianapolis. Our team here at Chat Sports is going to be in Indianapolis all week long to get you guys extensive coverage on the Pittsburgh Steelers from Indianapolis. We'll have press conferences from both GM OMar Khan and head coach Mike McCarthy, as well as the latest rumors. It's a big rumors week with everybody in the NFL consolidated in one spot. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button for our extensive combine coverage that we're going to be having here on the channel over the next week or so. And of course, make sure you guys click that subscribe button to join the most interactive Steelers fan community anywhere here on YouTube. We will continue to get you guys the daily community posts and the daily videos and all that great stuff for you guys to interact with here on the channel. All right, so $5 from Schuleberg says, would it be better to try and get 2027 draft capital for TJ Watt in a trade? I feel like that class is way better and you might get more value. I would be open to it for sure. If you're going to trade TJ Watt, if you're going to trade Nick Herbig, one of these edge rushers, and it does seem like, especially if Herbig is going to demand a trade out, if he's not going to get an extension and a full-time starting spot here in Pittsburgh, you're going to have to make a tough decision. And, you already have 12 picks this year, right? So it could make sense to try and get more draft capital for 2027 when you might be drafting a quarterback and you might want to load up on draft capital for that draft class. Certainly makes a lot of sense there. So if the team is right and is willing to give me the right compensation in 2027 for TJ Watt, that is definitely something that I would consider. $2 from CL Rose, who says, do you think Mike T will attend the 2026 NFL draft? You never know, but it kind of seems like Tomlin's kind of cool, just like living a private life, and he kind of hates the media, honestly, and he just doesn't really fit his lifestyle. So maybe he goes on McAfee or something, or something a little bit more laid back. But I don't really expect to see a whole lot of Mike Tomlin over the next calendar year in terms of media appearances. $2 from Bernard says, Jack, do you still think A-Rod is coming back? Maybe he's decided by the time this comes out. This is supposed to be coming out on Sunday, just so you guys know we're filming this on Thursday. But if Rodgers, I think at this point, as I sit here today, Rodgers is more likely to come back than not. The reason for that is Tom Pelissero's report that Rodgers has apparently had, quote-unquote, several conversations with Mike McCarthy. Now, I could see him calling up Mike McCarthy one time to congratulate him on getting the Steelers job, but that's just a one-time call sort of situation. I feel like if you're having multiple conversations with the Steelers head coach, like what are you talking about? Like, you're not talking about where you get your hair cut, during the week. Like, you're talking about what receivers are you planning on bringing in? What's your vision for the offense? How would I fit into that vision? And, you start having some of those conversations. And it reminds me a lot when we heard Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers were having multiple conversations behind the scenes during the Rodgers situation last year, right? It just feels like a very similar situation to me. It seems like the players want Rodgers back. Apparently Rodgers' body felt pretty darn good at the end of the season this past year. And it sounds like he still really loves playing football. And McCarthy did bring in a lot of his friends on the coaching staff, and I'm sure he'd like to play with those people, in the same building for one more year before he retires. So if I had to guess right now, I do think Aaron Rodgers comes back for another year, but certainly retirement is still on the table because it's Aaron Rodgers, and I don't think anybody knows for sure what he's thinking at this point. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Who should be Pittsburgh's QB1 in 2026? Should it be Aaron Rodgers? Should it be Malik Willis? Should it be Geno Smith? Should it be Ty Simpson? Will Howard? Let me know what you guys' pick is down there in the comment section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Prize Picks. While I tell you about about today's sponsor? Let me know your answer to today's pin question down there in the comments. With that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at PrizePicks. Shoot your shot on PrizePicks right now and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, PrizePicks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you play your first $5. PrizePicks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting this basketball season. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. PrizePicks is simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all of your favorite sports, anything from basketball to baseball, which is starting up soon, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, and even NASCAR and esports. A new feature from PrizePicks that I love is early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you can now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. $5 from Yami. It says, do you believe the Steelers' first-round pick will be depending on Aaron Rodgers returning? If not, where do you think they go position-wise? It's a good question, and I think it at least a little bit is dependent on if Rodgers comes back, because obviously if he's coming back, then I think that the urgency to get a quarterback early in the draft goes down. Okay, now maybe the Steelers just fall in love with Ty Simpson out of Alabama anyway, and they go out and draft him round 1, even if Rodgers comes back. That's a possibility, because Simpson actually fits Mike McCarthy pretty well. He's got a super fast processor. He's played in an NFL-style offense before in Alabama, and a lot of these colleges don't run pro-style offenses nowadays. Talent. He can, layer that football over the middle of the field. He's got some athleticism to him as well. He just fits Mike McCarthy, man. So it wouldn't shock me at all if he ends up being his guy of the future. But obviously, if Rodgers retires, then I think that probably kickstarts that movement even more. If Rodgers retires and, they can't get a guy like, say, Malik Willis in free agency or Kyler Murray in the trade market, like they might be bringing in a veteran like Geno Smith or Kirk Cousins, and those guys are not long-term options. So they're going to have to look for that long-term option. Do they really believe in Will Howard so much where they're going to make him the long-term future without any competition? I don't know about that. So I would say if Rodgers retires, the chances of Ty Simpson going round 1 go up. And if Rodgers comes back, Ty Simpson going to Pittsburgh in round 1 go down. But personally, I'm kind of hoping they take a receiver to pair with Rodgers if he returns to try to get the most out of the then 43-year-old QB. Kevin Reed with a question here says, if Gainwell doesn't come back, do you think KJ gets a chance? It's certainly a possibility, right? High draft pick, 3rd-round draft pick from last year, highly touted out of Iowa. Hopefully he's learned a thing or two from Eddie Faulkner, the previous running backs coach. Hopefully he picks up some new things from Ramon Chinyong here, the new running backs coach here in Pittsburgh. And, I'm rooting for KJ. I really am. I really liked him coming out of Iowa. It's just he wasn't a good enough pass protector, wasn't a good enough pass catcher. And also, Kenny Gainwell had an awesome season, right? I think KJ would have played a lot more if Kenneth Gainwell wasn't as good as he was last season. So we'll see what their plan is there. But they could certainly go out in free agency or the draft to get more running back help as well. So my guess is if Gainwell doesn't come back, Caleb Johnson is probably, that second piece alongside Jaylen Warren heading into the year. But I guess we'll just have to see on that. Now, before we get to the rest of your questions here this week, make sure you guys click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you are a real one, the real ones know clicking that thumbs up icon is the fastest and easiest way to help us out here on Steelers Talk. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you enjoy our content as a Steelers fan and that they should push it and recommend it to other Steelers fans across planet Earth. So if you guys want to help us out, get our videos in front of more audiences, click that thumbs up icon and help us out today. Eugene Payne, my man, says TJ will have a better year this season, believe it or not. I hope he does. Like, if he's back next year, and let's say they trade Nick Herbig this offseason, they choose TJ Watt over Nick Herbig, I hope TJ Watt wins Defensive Player of the Year. I hope that he's worth every penny of the contract that he currently has left, because it's like $42 million cap hit. Then he's got, multiple more years of really high quarterback level cap hits, right? So I hope he's worth every penny of that, man, because if he's worth every penny of that, that means he's playing at a Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons level. And obviously that means good things for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And maybe, with them bringing in Patrick Graham, he can unlock, maybe a second wind in TJ Watt's career, and he can play awesome in this defense. And certainly a possibility. TJ's still a really good player. And if they end up keeping him, obviously I'll be cheering for him, and I still love him as a player. I mean, we've got wall art of him up here in the studio, so certainly not anti-TJ Watt by any stretch of the imagination, and certainly hope he can be more productive next year than he was this year. $5 from Interstellar Reaper says, Jack, you can't cut Mason Rudolph. I remember when he saved Christmas with Pickens. Yeah, man, I'm on record saying Mason Rudolph's a Steelers legend for life, but you can't attach sentimental value to decisions to build your team around unless you want to suck, plain and simply, and you want to overpay players that aren't fits for your team, stuff like that. And even if Rodgers comes back, I think it makes more sense to have multiple younger quarterback options to develop behind him than to keep Rudolph. Because let's face it, man. If Aaron Rodgers gets injured next year, Mason Rudolph is not winning you a Super Bowl. Plain and simply, your season's over regardless if Aaron Rodgers is out for the year. So I just don't really see the value in keeping Rudolph, if I'm being honest. I would rather bring in somebody that's younger to be your backup that could maybe be a long-term solution at the quarterback position. Maybe somebody like Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, Trey Lance, one of these guys that, kind of flamed out somewhere else. But can maybe have some success here in Pittsburgh under Mike McCarthy. $10 from Trump versus, hey, Jack, how do you trade TJ Watt considering his record and what he has done for the Steelers? I don't want to lose Nick Herbig, but I don't want to give up Watt either. I don't want to give up any of them, man. I'm on record saying that, having that three-headed monster at outside linebacker has been a big-time advantage for the Pittsburgh Steelers these last several years. They've had the best edge rusher trio in the game, but plain and simply, Nick Herbig is way too good to be getting 15 snaps a game. I don't blame him at all for wanting to be a full-time starter. I don't blame him for wanting to get paid this offseason. So, if I have to make a tough choice as to who I'm going to trade, if I'm just looking at it objectively, I'm going to go with the guy that's the oldest, the most expensive by far against the cap, and would save me the most money by trading, and then also the least productive last year. TJ Watt was less productive by the numbers than Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig in terms of his pure pass rushing stats. And I know people are going to be like, oh, but he got double teams, all that stuff. But you're paying him $42 million against the cap to beat those double teams. That's what Myles Garrett does. That's what Micah Parsons does. That's why they get paid as much as they do, is because they don't let double teams stop them. All right. And TJ Watt lets double teams stop him now. And that didn't used to be the case. But listen, man, that's just what happens when you get older as a speed rusher. And I'm not trying to say TJ Watt's a bad player. He's still a very good player. And when he gets one-on-one opportunities, he's still dominant. And he's still a very good run defender and all those different things. It's just he's slowing down. And I think that's a reality that we have to come to grips with. And we have to if it comes down to keeping a 31-year-old player that's super expensive and is on the decline versus retaining a 24-year-old up-and-coming edge rusher and Nick Herbig, I'm taking the up-and-coming guy every chance that I get, no matter how much sentimental value I have for TJ Watt at this point. So if you had to pick one to trade this offseason, who are you picking? Type TJ if you want to trade TJ Watt, type AH for Alex Highsmith, or NH for Nick Herbig. Personally, I think the right decision is to trade TJ. And I think, if I'm being honest, I think the most likely person that they would trade in real life is Nick Herbig. And honestly, I think that's a pretty realistic possibility at this point. All right, well, that's going to be it for this week's mailbag, guys. Thank you so much for making it to the end with me here this week. Make sure you guys join us every Thursday where we film these mailbags, where you guys can have your voice heard here on Steelers Talk. I greatly appreciate your guys' support. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers. All right, cool. He doesn't want one. No. I would honestly let's just give one away to somebody in the chat. All right, well, type those me's in the chat, all right? If you are one of the real ones, the 200 people that made it to the end of the show, we're going to give away a Steelers Talk channel hat right here because we made over $150 in donations today. So if you guys don't have a Steelers Talk hat, but you want one, spam those me's in the chat right now. We are going to give one away right now to somebody for free in the chat. We got Electric Divergent in here. We got Acidic. We've got Kevin Reed. If you guys don't have a hat, but you want one, spam those me's. We got Gray Marrow. We've got Kevin Reed really putting in his me's. Let's go, Kevin. Got Ronnie, Electric Divergent. Who are the real ones, man? Real one roll call to finish up today's show. Spam those me's if you want the hat. Whoever puts in the most me's in the next 60 seconds is going to win the hat today. We got Cash, Christopher Carver. We've got Kevin Reed, Grim Reaper, Gray Marrow, Ronnie, DeBang. Who wants it? Spam those me's. If you guys are wondering what it looks like here, I'll go grab one. This is what the channel hat looks like. If you guys want one of these babies, spam those me's. We're going to be picking one person in the chat here in 30 seconds. So I thought a pretty productive live show today, Ponzi. Addressed a lot of topics. Talked a little bit about Aaron Rodgers and some of the options that we have if he retires, which isn't great. I think we're honestly in a pretty tough spot if he chooses to retire and we can't get Malik Willis. Like, listen, man, if he retires and we get Willis, I'll be excited as hell for that. He was awesome in Green Bay the last 2 years when he's played, especially this past year. I don't know if you saw this stat, but I think he had 15 downfield pass attempts last year, and he was like 13 for 15, multiple touchdowns, had like 200 yards on those just 13 completions. Like he was just so efficient last year, and he's got the dynamic athleticism you look for. He's he's played in cold weather conditions, so he can handle the Pittsburgh weather. Like if Rodgers retires and we go a younger option, I think Malik Willis, is probably the guy. And even though he'd be pretty expensive, I think he would be the guy that I would go with.
Malik Willis's class, which was what, 2023, 2022?
2022.
And that was one of the first draft classes I really got into scouting. And, man, I got to tell you, I had a huge draft crush on Malik Willis. I think he's, really physically gifted. I really do think, a lot of people will say, oh, his time in Tennessee wasn't great. The 2 years that he was there in Tennessee, you want to know, some of those wide receiver cores that were there? They got rid of A.J. Brown.
They've been bad for a long time.
They got rid of, they had Julio Jones for, a part of it. They were bad. They had Treylon Burks there. He was not good in Tennessee. I think, Malik Willis, what really impressed me was when he got traded, not last year, but the year before, and he started against Tennessee off short notice, and he looked really good. He looked, very solid. He looked a lot more confident. And I think, it does wonders when you're given into a system that actually caters around you. And I think Michael McCarthy would do that here.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty good. So I think plan A is to bring back Aaron Rodgers, and I do think that's what's going to happen. I think he will come back. But if he doesn't come back, I think plan B is probably Malik Willis.
Plan C, Ty Simpson?
Yeah, plan C, Geno Smith and Ty Simpson is probably what I would say at this point, which I know a lot of Steelers fans would not like, because I know a lot of Steelers fans don't like the idea of Geno, and they don't like the idea of Ty Simpson. So combining those two, Armageddon is what it's going to be here in Pittsburgh if we end up getting to plan C. But I'm going to give this hat to Kevin Reed. Kevin Reed has been here the entire show. He's been spamming his me. He's a real one. So, Kevin, send me an email at Sperry at chatsports.com. Send me your shipping address. I'll make sure to get you a channel hat when we can. So, right now, guys, we're getting pretty close to our next milestone here. We got to $938 for the month of February. I think next Tuesday we're probably going to get over $1,000 for the month. So you guys have been fantastic. Thank you guys so much for joining us here today. Next time we are live with the Combine situation next week. It's kind of up in the air in terms of when we're going to be able to go live next week, just so you guys know. But make sure you guys have your notifications on so that when we do go live, you guys get that notification. You guys can join the chat. So that'll be it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for all of your support. We will see you guys next time. And until then, here we go, Steelers.